Schools closed and thousands of people without power as back-to-back storms have battered parts of the UK.
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock on Monday, the 31st of January. This is Breakfast on GBNews with Eamonn and Isabel.
Coming up, we'll bring you the latest on those storms. Storm Corey, just one day after Storm Malik devastated parts of Scotland and northern England, but the storm is now clearing eastwards, taking the force winds with it. It's left 2 people dead, including a 9-year-old boy.
The government is expected to announce a U-turn on mandatory COVID jabs for NHS and social care workers after the Omicron variant's found to be milder than first feared.
2 years to the day since the UK left the EU, the government launches a new Brexit Freedoms Bill, which aims to cut £1 billion of red tape for British businesses. The Met Office have enforced an amber wind warning for parts of Scotland and the north of England as Storm Corey brought gusts of 90 miles an hour.
First Minister Nicola Sturgeon warned the second storm could likely be significant after Storm Malik caused havoc across the UK over the weekend. A yellow warning remains in place for the rest of Scotland and northern England until midday.
Yesterday, a 9-year-old boy in Staffordshire and a 60-year-old woman in Aberdeen were killed by falling trees from the first storm. Around 34,000 homes are still without power. Our North East of England reporter Rachel Sweeney sent us this report from Tyne and Wear.
2 women were trapped in debris when the gable end of a house came down in the Gateshead village of Winlayton. They'd been standing at a bus stop.
The young guy trying to move the rubble off them before the police come, and then the police came. Then I think they told them, right, stand back, because you didn't know if any more was coming down, you know. Then the next time I went along, the fire brigade were there and everything.
And they were trapped?
They were actually, I think they were trapped with their legs,
So the rubble was on them?
Because they weren't moving, they were just like in a sitting position, if you know what I mean. This one with that jacket was all ripped at the back, well, I should imagine where the rubble's come down and ripped that cord.
You would never ever think in a million years that would happen, especially weighting of stone. But it shows you how strong wind is. And in life, there's no guarantees, you know. I really feel sorry for the people who were there. I mean, the chances of that must be a million and one chance.
We've been in the North East, we've just come to get used to it, really. But these last few years, the weather seems to be just getting worse and worse.
2 streets away, the clean-up operation needed much more than a dustpan and brush.
Well, I was passing it through my kitchen and I saw the trampoline fly over.
Is there a lot of damage in the area?
Yes, trees down, gable end down, Sion Terrace is gone.
15 minutes away in Bensham, the roof of a house completely blew off, leaving devastating damage. Neighbours said it was hard to believe as they began securing their own homes. In the County Durham village of Meadowfield, trees have been uprooted and fallen on gravestones. This is a much-loved part of Durham where the community helps maintain the gardens. There have been countless blocked roads, destroyed properties and power cuts. But in true North East fashion, there's also been a huge community pull together. It's another storm, but it's the same resilience here. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
We're going to go now to Jim Dale. Jim, good morning to you. Jim is a senior meteorologist at the British Weather Services. Jim, first of all, where are we at? We're talking 2 storms. Malik has gone through. Where is Storm Corey at the moment?
Storm Corey is also through now. It's into the North Sea. It left the east coast of Scotland last night, and so now what we're seeing is the northwesterly airflow behind that. Still some very strong gusts. I think probably the peak is over. We're always at the point of looking at showers that are coming in behind, which can always ramp up, of course, with the winds ramping up within the showers. But generally speaking, I think the isobars now are just starting to widen a little bit. So Storm Corey is heading away slowly.
So it looks as though Storm Corey then not anywhere near as bad in terms of damage and impact, certainly no loss of life compared to Storm Malik, which, really was much worse than I think even forecasters predicted.
Yeah, you got it right there, Isabel. Let's just say this to you. Storm Malik was named by the Danish Met Institute, the Meteorological Institute in Denmark, rather than our own Met Office, which is rather surprising in a way, because arguably it probably was the worst of the two storms. Now, when I say that, I looked at the wind strengths, and they're not very distant away from each other. But I think you're probably right. The first one was, the storm that was in the waiting after the very, very sedate summer that winter that we had. Quiet weather, sedate weather, settled weather, and all of a sudden we got winter back in. And the first one to come in is usually the worst in terms of the damage that it can do, and people in the wrong place at the wrong time, that type of thing. The second one was well forecasted. It was given a name by our own Met Office. So yeah, but it's unusual to get two right in a row, a day apart. And so we'll wake up this morning. People are going to be waking up in the as it gets light. I think we'll probably see a little bit more damage that's been done in the overnight. But I think you might be right. I think the first of the Malik was probably the bigger of the two.
Well, two storms in a row we have had. Jim, what about the next few days? Any respite?
Yeah, there is actually. I don't see at this moment in time, and I'm saying this with a little bit of look back at last week, because this time last week we hadn't really seen Malik or Corrie. So these things can develop quite quickly. There is respite. I think these next few days will be less intense, less ferocious, a lot more settled. Having said that, I think the week unwinds. I think we're still in a changeable mixed zone. So we're going to again have to look for the shorter term development. Now that we've got the jet stream, the upper air winds over us, we've got to be very careful in terms of what develops in a short term period. So 24 hours later, we could be putting out new warnings and new threats. So winter, Eamonn, winter is not over. As you probably know, we've got a month to go, and even then into March, we can still get these ferocious winds, and we've probably arguably gone through a winter period where you say, well, it's been so sedate, perhaps these things were overdue.
Jim, thank you. We'll leave it there. Jim's a senior meteorologist there, and that is the situation with those storms Malik and Corrie. Headlines are these with the time at 6:07.
A man in his 20s has been arrested on suspicion of rape and assault after Manchester United suspended the footballer Mason Greenwood following allegations on social media. Greater Manchester Police says it's aware of the images and videos posted by a woman reporting incidents of physical violence. Manchester United announced that Greenwood will not train or play for the Premier League club until further notice. He's yet to respond to the allegations.
New evidence shows the prime suspect in the Madeleine McCann investigation worked at the holiday apartments in Portugal where she disappeared in 2007. A documentary airing tonight on German TV reveals 44-year-old paedophile Christian B carried out repairs at the resort. The man, who's currently in prison for rape, denies having any involvement.
A Brexit freedoms bill, which the government claims will cut £1 billion of red tape for UK businesses, is set to be brought forward. It affects how EU laws, which were kept for legal continuity after Brexit, are handled. Downing Street says the bill will ensure changes can be made easily and allow the country to capitalise on Brexit freedoms more quickly.
Hundreds of hospital porters, cleaners and catering staff have started a 2-week strike over pay. Unite, the union, says some members employed by Serco at St Bart's, the Royal London and Whipps Cross are paid up to 50% less than those employed directly by the NHS.
More passengers could soon receive financial compensation for delayed domestic flights. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, has announced plans to reduce the payout threshold from a 3-hour delay to just 1.
Spotify is set to add advisory warnings to podcasts that discuss COVID-19, redirecting users to coronavirus facts. It follows criticism over its hosting of the vaccine skeptic Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The singers Neil Young and Joni Mitchell have pulled their music from the platform, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have also raised concerns over what they term as misinformation.
Now the government is expected to do a U-turn over mandatory COVID-19 vaccines for NHS and care workers after growing concerns the sector could be left with a massive staffing crisis.
For more on this, let's go to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Darren is in Downing Street this morning. What more do you know, Darren?
Well, there's some 77,000 NHS staff who essentially have not been vaccinated, and there have been concerns for weeks, months now, that if this was to go ahead, this plan from the 1st of April, that those that were not vaccinated would have to leave or be reassigned within the National Health Service, that many services would simply collapse. That many nurses and doctors would simply not be able to do their job, and that will put an extra strain on the National Health Service at precisely the time it is not needed. Now, the government, under pressure, have started to review this policy because essentially people, if they were to be fully vaccinated by the start of April, would have had to start getting their vaccines, or the last possible moments would have been this Thursday. Now, ministers are going to meet later on today. It looks almost inevitable now that this policy will be scrapped. The government to date have argued that the unvaccinated put patients at risk inside hospitals and in other care settings. In essence, they argue because if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to get the virus and thus less likely to pass it on. Those on the opposing side say, however, well, vaccines don't show any evidence that in themselves that they stop transmission, and that it should be up to individuals to make those decisions. So in the end, I think the pressure that the NHS would be under has forced ministers' hands on all of this, and we're expecting them to do a pretty significant U-turn that will affect, as I say, tens of thousands of people right across the National Health Service.
OK, Darren, and I just want to turn our attention to Brexit. The Prime Minister's written a big piece in the Daily Mail today talking about the Brexit Freedoms Bill with a plan to boost business and cut red tape. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so when we left the European Union, we actually just transferred many of our laws and regulations over to the UK. That was in part just a smoother transition, so you don't have to spend an awful lot of time in the political chaos trying to rewrite thousands of different kind of measures of red tape and regulation and rules and all that sort of stuff. So the government today say they've been carrying out this proper review about what they want to keep and what they want to change. Things like, for example, having VAT on tampons or potentially energy bills and on other things. They argue it'll also cut red tape for businesses, help grow jobs, though there is a bit of anger about this because the decisions are going to be made here in Westminster and not necessarily in the devolved governments in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, so that's angered the devolved administrations. But also there are always questions on there about whether it's EU red tape or UK red tape, but in the end, how much money will it actually save? How many jobs will it create? It's very easy to throw 1 billion, 2 billion around. Regulations will, of course, in some form have to stay in place. But you're right, it is a busy week in Westminster. Not just that. We've also, of course, have got the Levelling Up reports that we're finally expecting for the government later on this week about how they're going to try and improve, particularly the circumstances in the north of England. The Prime Minister very much, he would say, focused on the situation in Ukraine. We're expecting a visit from him to that part of the world again later on this week. And of course, I promised you to it last Wednesday. I suggested it could have been Thursday. It could be today. We are still waiting for Sue Gray's report, unbelievably.
Still waiting on clarification for the planned national insurance increase. Word out of number 11 seems to be it's going ahead. How can Boris Johnson sanction that and hold on to his backbench support?
Yeah, really fascinating this, isn't it, Eamonn? There were lots of suggestions last week that the Prime Minister was going to do, again, a U-turn on all of this. But interestingly, yesterday, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister wrote a joint letter in the Sunday Times saying it was going to go ahead. This is the national insurance hike, 1.25%, that is going to pay for essentially social care in the long term, but national health services in the immediate term, given the burden of the pandemic. But Tory MPs are not very happy about this. First of all, it breaks a manifesto commitment. The taxes would not be going up. That is clearly not the case when it comes to national insurance. And they think it also is coming at the worst possible time as energy prices go up, as inflation is very high, as tax thresholds are also due to change. Can people really afford it in April of this year? But in the end, the Prime Minister seems to be backing up the Chancellor on all this, saying it is necessary because that money has to go in, or else the NHS will not have the funding it needs in the years to come, and that the social care crisis, looking after our old people, again needs proper funding for the long term. But be in no doubt, there are a lot of Conservatives, particularly on the right, who think that this is a Conservative government that's increasing taxes to the highest level for 70 years in this country, and they would argue, given economic growth, it's entirely unnecessary.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Your views, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
OK, coming up after the break, our reporter Ellie Costello is in Margate to find out what locals there are making of today's big stories. We'll be at the seaside in just a moment.
But first, looking ahead to today, and Storm Corrie is now clearing eastwards, taking the storm force winds with it. We've just been reporting on that. Here are the details.
If in the southwest, it'll be blustery and showery this lunchtime, whilst some sunny breaks are likely. There won't be as much sunshine as yesterday, and it will feel colder too.
There's also the risk of a few showers in the southeast. They shouldn't be especially heavy, though the odd sharp one is possible.
It will be blustery and showery across much of Wales. The heaviest showers are going to be towards the northwest of the county.
We move towards the Midlands, and the showers feed southeastwards. They will ease a little, so there will be fewer for the Midlands area. That being said, there will still be a few which could catch you out.
In the northeast, things should stay drier. The very strong winds we saw earlier in the day will be easing with plenty of sunshine on the cards there. Temperatures a touch down on average.
Here's Scotland. Showers will feed across Scotland. Some of those falling as sleet or snow, especially over higher ground. Southeastern parts of the country have the best chance of staying dry.
Showers and blustery winds are expected across Northern Ireland. Notice that whilst it will be chilly today, it is going to turn milder as we go through the next few days.
So overall, cloud and persistent rain will push into the northwest to leave a damp end to the day, and that is the weather and how it's shaping up for the rest of this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Well, over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Where does the time go? 19 minutes past 6 o'clock on this Monday morning. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Isabel and my good self, Eamonn Holmes.
Now, we are live across the UK on both your TV and your radio, but we also send our reporters out and about.
On your doorstep.
Yeah, on your doorstep.
No getting away from us at all.
That's right.
So we're going to find out what you think about the biggest stories of the day. Let's go to the southeast of England. Our reporter Ellie Costello in Margate. Ellie, good morning to you. What's the weather doing with you?
Well, Eamonn and Isabel, it's very windy and a very cold Margate here on the Kent coast this morning, and we're here talking to local people about the stories that matter to them. And Margate has got a fascinating history. 250 years ago, this was the place to be if you were coming out from London for a sunny seaside break on the coast. It doesn't feel like it today, but I will show you the beach a little bit later on. Now, like many seaside resorts in Britain, it did fall into disrepair in the 20th century, but now there's a huge emphasis on the regeneration of Margate and getting investment and tourists back into the town. So we're going to talk to somebody about that now. I can see a light on, so I hope he's up for us. You just come with me. Oh, gate's already open for us. Lovely. Come up these steps. This is number 25. Hello, good morning. You are live on TV and on radio on GBNews. You can hear your dog in the background. Do you want to introduce yourself to everyone watching at home?
Yeah, my name's Jack Packman. I'm 29 years old.
Lovely, Jack. And you look very smart. You're dressed for work. What do you work as?
So I'm a community development manager.
Fabulous. So you know all about the development of Margate. Tell us a little bit, for people who haven't visited before, what is Margate all about, what it's like to live here?
It's fantastic. In the summer, you've got the beaches, you've got the old town, which is really vibrant and different, and you've got everything in the old town, but also you've got the regeneration of Margate, which is really, really exciting. You know, you've got small independent businesses now coming back to the high street. You've got the town deal where Margate's been awarded £22 million. So it's really, really good, a really exciting time to live in Margate.
And lots of people haven't been to Margate before, but obviously one good thing really about COVID and the travel restrictions meant that people coming here to staycation for the first time. What was that like for Margate as a town?
Yeah, during the summer last year, Margate was probably busier than ever, and it was really good for the local businesses, and I think that's why we're seeing more independent businesses coming back to Margate, and especially now we've been awarded the £22 million town deal, so it's really, really good and really exciting to see Margate regenerating again.
It's so good to hear how passionate you are about your hometown. You've been here your whole life, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So what are the issues that affect people that live in Margate?
Yeah, so the biggest issue at the moment is obviously the cost of living going up. You know, the housing prices are going up here, but the wages are staying the same, and those that are not in employment are probably finding it harder. But the working class people are now starting to really, really struggle with the increase in rent, increase in mortgages, the increase in cost of living, the increase in energy prices, and we've got more to come.
Yeah, exactly. We do have more to come, and that's what I was about to ask you. This is something that we're talking about on the breakfast show this morning, and that is Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak confirming over the weekend that there would be this national insurance hike in April of this year, and it's going to hit families really hard here in Margate, isn't it? I mean, this is all about tackling the backlog in the NHS and our social care crisis. What do you think in terms of timing? Is this something that should have happened, or is it going to make things really difficult for people?
I think it's poor timing, really, from the government. You know, we're seeing people struggling at the worst, really, in the last 70 years. It's probably the highest tax increase we're going to see. And yet the constant promises from the government not to increase taxes and not to increase the cost of living unnecessarily. And they say that we're doing well economically, but are we, if they're increasing their tax prices? And like I say, it's going to push people into homelessness, into debts unnecessarily.
And another big story that we're talking about today, as we have been for weeks, is the Partygate scandal going on at Number 10. There are rumours that we are going to see, or at least Number 10 are going to see that report perhaps today. What do you think about this? Is this something that we should be talking about still, or do you think we should have moved on at this point?
No, I think the government needs to be held to account. Certainly when we've seen people losing their lives during COVID and our loved ones can't see the people that are taking their final breaths in hospitals, and we're seeing nurses even passing away. You know, here in Margate we had, you know, the 27-year-old nurse that passed away here very early on in the pandemic, and her family couldn't even get to see her. So we've got, you know, people passing away on the front line, you know, our heroes really doing the work. 1 minute we're clapping them, next minute we're sacking them because they're not having the jabs, and then we're hearing that the government are having parties in Downing Street, which is just simply, for me, unacceptable.
And Jack, I do want to touch upon that vaccine mandate because it looks as though that's going to be a U-turn today. Good thing, do you think?
I think it should come down to people's independent choices. I think people have different circumstances. For me, I'm double jabbed and boosted. My family are, but you know, we have no issues health-wise or anything like that. Or you know, we support the vaccine. But there are people out there that I do understand. You know, it should be independent choices. I have friends that aren't vaccinated. It doesn't mean they're any different to me or my family. It just means they're choosing not to. But they've got to understand there is a higher risk of catching the infection and potentially being hospitalised, which they have to understand.
Well, Jack, I've really put you on the spot there with all those questions. Thank you so much for talking to us. I better let you get to work. He stayed up especially for us, stayed up here to talk to us this morning. Thanks so much, Jack. Have a lovely day. Well, Eamonn and Isabel, we're going to be in Margate all morning with you live on your TV and on your radio. And shortly, I'm going to be speaking to a couple that are foster carers, and we're going to be talking to them about the amazing work that they do and the stories that matter to them.
Good people, foster carers.
Really good people. I was just thinking that. Well done you for picking out those people. That's fantastic.
And well done, Jack. Jack's gone nipped inside to see if we're going to mention him. So we are. Jack in Margate, good man. Like the coat as well. Very good. Very good there. Right, Ellie, we've got to go because we've got to talk tennis. The Australian Open, Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, he's now the world's most successful male tennis player of all time. We're talking about that with Paul Coit in just a moment. But first, we have the papers after the break.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
In the studio now to go through the morning newspapers so you don't have to, Tonya Buxton, who you'll know from GB News, and how would I describe you normally? A cook? No? Chef?
A cook, a chef, and an annoyance.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't go that far. Wouldn't go that far. Tanya likes a good ice bath in the morning or the evening. Reminds me of myself in many, many ways. Audrey Walker, the political commentator here as well. Tanya, first of all, we're going to begin with the COVID vaccination thing and for the NHS.
Yeah.
So now the Health Secretary looks as though he's going to backtrack on this, scrap requirements, because for NHS staff to be vaccinated because it could lead to staff shortages.
I don't believe that's the only reason. I believe that the people at the Together Declaration which I actually was one of the early signatories, and we took it to Downing Street not last Monday, Monday before, which had 370,000 signatures on it, and with the 10k NHS nurses, I think that's also made a difference. And I think the fact that this makes complete sense. Omicron is nature's vaccine. We don't need to be vaccinated. How can we get rid of the people that we clapped for all through the pandemic and suddenly sack them because they don't want to take a medication? They've all had COVID.
We'll be very interested to see how the Health Secretary phrases all of this, how he backs down.
Well, presumably he'll just panic and go, oh, my God, we've done it again, because the government seems to be in complete disarray once again. I mean, look, I've got some sympathy for the argument of wanting people to be fully vaccinated. I say as a complete hypocrite because I never got round to it myself. But I think it is important that people are vaccinated. But the idea that you're going to sack somebody for either being ill or refusing medical treatment, I think is an incredibly dangerous thing. But I just think that time and time again, you know, I always used to say when I worked in the House of Commons, either you run the position or the position will run you. And the government is just constantly on the back foot, constantly backing down, and things just seem to be constantly going wrong. It just feels like a shambles to me.
It does feel like a shambles. I also think that they're not reading their audience either. People have had enough of this. We've had 2 years of this. So what I'm thinking is, if this is happening now, then they'll have to reinstate the care workers, which was devastating. If you work in care, and I have friends who work in care who lost their jobs because they all had COVID, so they couldn't logically understand why they needed to then get the vaccine. And so they lost their jobs. Hopefully they'll reinstate them as well, because that seems fair, right?
But you can't jump up and down and be holier than thou if you're in Downing Street, having guzzled some moe and eaten brie during a so-called work day. You know, I think that office party, or the series of office parties, whatever it was, legal or illegal, whether it was technically compliant or not technically compliant, the fact that the people passing the rules thought it was a load of old rubbish. Now, OK, that makes you a giant hypocrite, but it also makes you totally incapable of standing up and saying that you really care about this issue of vaccinating care workers, because plainly you don't. You don't take it seriously.
OK, are we taking seriously what's going on around the borders of Ukraine? And if Mr Putin has an incursion into Ukraine, sanctions on Russian oligarchs in Britain?
Well, I get a little bit annoyed about this, and the reason is because there has been a war going on in Ukraine for a significant amount of time, and a large number of people lose their lives every single week as a result of it. Ukraine, like Georgia, has occupied territories that Vladimir Putin has been behind. Obviously, we're talking about a far bigger war that might take place. Look, you know, whether you like it or not, the Kremlin has been thoroughly discredited because of the Soviet Union. You know, you've got to remember, the people of Ukraine, you can say Ukraine's Russia's backyard all day. There was a famine where millions and millions of people died under the Soviet Union. And so that has ended the relationship between Ukraine and Russia, as far as I'm concerned. But here's our big question, and I don't know the answer, but I pose it. Britain, London in particular, is becoming incredibly wealthy off the back of Russian expats, oligarchs and so on and so forth. You know, when we start confiscating their assets or shutting them down or freezing bank accounts, we will take an economic hit for that. And I just wonder whether we shouldn't put our own country first and just say we're willing to accept this money. It's not going to go down brilliantly in every quarter, but I think there is an argument for it.
Talking about relationships, Tanya, here you've taken this from the BBC News website, and it's in many of the newspapers as well. Spotify. What's happening there? They're falling out with some of their clientele, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, and the Sussexes.
Well, all I can say is that, you know, we have to fight for freedom of speech. And Spotify are not the arbitrators of freedom of speech, and neither is Joni Mitchell. Who is Joni Mitchell? Who are these people? I don't know. I mean, they're too old for me.
They bought the album on Love Actually. I remember that.
Something like that. Who are they to tell us what we can hear? We are adults, we live in a free country, and we should be able to hear whatever we want to hear. And who are they to decide what is misinformation and what isn't misinformation? So Joe Rogan has a podcast. I've been listening to him. I hadn't listened to him before. I started listening to him once this furore started. And actually, he's very moderate. He asks lots of questions. He's not some kind of conspiratorial person. And so who are these people to tell us what we can listen to? So I really hope Spotify hold their ground.
Yeah, but you know the funny thing about the vaccine, which is really, really frustrating, if you look at MMR, the more information we gave to people, the more the vaccine take-up rate increased. It went down very badly when there was lots of people kind of saying that it was linked to autism. But then when you started educating people, I genuinely think that people are not stupid. And when you start saying, look, any medical procedure has side effects, people will accept that.
But they're not saying that. They're not saying that. That's the problem.
By the way, can I just say this to you that was in the Mail as part of this story? Harry and Meghan are furious, but they're not giving the money back.
No.
Yes.
They're absolutely...
They still keep their deal with Spotify.
That's right.
I think that's why they've jumped on this bandwagon. I don't think they have content. No one's interested in their content. And so they've jumped onto this bandwagon because they don't want to give the money back.
Okay. That's right.
Andre, talking about money, not giving it back, taking it away, Mail, pages 8 and 9, Conservative anger rises. We were talking this to our political correspondent earlier on the programme. And so it looks like number 11 are saying, number 10 are not denying, that the National Insurance tax rise plan in April will go ahead.
Yeah, they're standing by this 1.25% increase, which I think is going to be devastating. I mean, look, you know, if
but it's going to pay for social care, they say.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, we've got major financial problems. And there's another story, by the way, in the same paper, which talks about the fact that there's not been a crackdown on £5 billion worth of fraud during the lockdown, people getting various payments that they weren't entitled to. And I just think that it's worth linking those two things together, because why are we splurging billions, locking people up? Do you remember Eat Out to Help Out?
Oh.
We all bought a pizza at a discounted rate, and then they shut the pubs again anyway.
Yeah.
There has been a huge amount of waste going on here, and I cannot help, and I understand the need for social care, I understand that it's ridiculous to have elderly people bed blocking in NHS hospitals, I get all that, but you cannot turn around and this government cry poverty when it has spent and wasted the levels of money that it has wasted.
Absolutely, you are so completely right on that one.
I know I am.
And this is the most unconservative of conservative governments. It's incredible what they're doing. And the fact that they're trying to justify it on this kind of guilt-ridden thing, or, well, if you don't give it tax, you don't care about the old, you don't care about care.
Yeah.
You didn't care about anyone or anything when you put us into these immoral lockdowns.
But do you not accept, Tanya, that something has to be done? Someone has got to bite the bullet on social care.
Absolutely.
And the funding of social care.
I really do, and I don't think it's us. I think they need to go back to their books and work it out. Like you said, get the money back from the fraud, from all the furlough money that went out, and loans to businesses. Go back and get that money back. Do some work there, instead of just constantly bleeding us. They've bled us dry for 2 years.
Eamonn, I think you're falling into the government's trap here by seeing things as siloed away.
Yeah.
You know, in reality, there is a need to fund social care, but you can't turn around, and not that you're doing it, but the government is, and effectively say, well, we're wasting money in this area, but that's wholly irrelevant to the issue of paying for social care. No, it's entirely relevant when you've got a national debt that's going to take 150 years to pay off.
But I love there's always this talk about we must do something about social care. Then no one ever wants to do anything about it because, do you know what? It costs money, and somewhere down the line we're going to have to do it. I just look and I think, look at fracking. If you just allow fracking, we'd solve our energy crisis situation. We'd have so much money, we could pay everything in the NHS and social care, and yet it'll never happen, will it?
Yeah, but that's because, and I don't want to be disrespectful to some of our viewers, that's because people in the south of England believe a level 1 seismic event is an earthquake. right?
Yeah.
So the minute that happened in Blackpool, everybody absolutely wet their pants. As far as I'm concerned, energy independence is absolutely huge. And we're sat there, we're sat there with all of these problems with Russia still going on about wind farms when we could be energy independent of fracking. It saved America a fortune.
The unreliable energy, because that's what it is, this reusable energy is unreliable energy. We need to go back to our roots and use the energy that we have in Britain, and we have so much. We have fracking, we have oil, we have everything.
I remember I worked for the MP for Morecambe, and the steam packet company that runs from Heysham to Belfast was saying, if you put more wind farms, wind turbines in the Irish Sea, we're going to be unable to sail the route because there's that many.
So many of them, yeah. Tonya, let's look at the Telegraph. This is page 5 of the Telegraph, and this is an attempt to break the record for the longest ever picnic table, and it's all in aid of
the Queen's 70-year reign.
Right.
Isn't that lovely? I remember her 25-year jubilee. I'm old enough to remember that, and it really was joyous. People were different then. I remember having picnic tables and everything out on the street, and I'm hoping the same kind of joy will happen again now. 500-mile picnic table is what they're going to try and do.
500 metres.
Metres. Is it metres or miles?
500 miles?
Oh.
That would have been epic.
I got very excited when I saw the M there. This is why I need to put my glasses on. Glasses are on now. I just knew you'd end up laughing at me, Eamonn. I knew I wasn't going to get away with it.
What you do is, in 500 miles, you've got the Proclaimers on one side in Scotland going,
oh, I would walk 500 miles.
All right, okay.
No, do you know what we should do?
500 metres. Let's
start crowdfunding.
This is why I have to put my glasses on when I'm reading. Anyway, I just feel that the Queen needs some joy.
Yeah.
Because she's had a really rubbish time with all that's been going on in her family. So I was just trying to find some joy to look at today.
There'd be a lot of people they could put round that table. They reckon 1,600 people.
What, is that the 500 miles?
That's
or the
500 metres. That's 500 metres. Did they say where this would be, this longest table?
Not yet.
Okay. Anyway, we'll notice it, put it that way. What else have we got here? Oh, yes. Drivers, this is in the Mail. Drivers begin fight back in the battle for the highway code. So these new rules in the highway code where pedestrians and cyclists get much more prominence came into force at the weekend.
Can I say,
yes.
I have a husband who's a cyclist.
Yes.
And so I'm supposed to kind of stand up for him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't bear them. It happened. I was driving yesterday, and there was 4 of them in the men in lycra, is what I call them. Just taking up the whole road, chatting to each other as they're going along.
4 abreast.
It took 4 abreast, and it took absolutely all my powers not to give them a nudge.
Do you know,
it's not fair. It's not right.
I'll tell you one thing, though, about cyclists, right? I mean, I do a bit of cycling myself. I go out at 6 in the morning because I'm a danger to myself and others. But I'll tell you, down my street, people start cycling. That lycra's obscene, right? It's absolutely obscene. I walked into my local cafe and I was like, whoa! Like, you might as well just be walking around naked. Yeah, it's not something that... I'll tell you what, Eamonn, let's get in the lycra. We'll do it one day. People would love that. A couple of big lads. So
basically, they've got motorist groups this week. They're going to meet to basically oppose these
rules. As a council of war, effectively. Yeah, look, there's real concerns. I don't drive, but there's real concerns about this idea that cyclists will be able to undertake and overtake, and actually that might become incredibly dangerous. And as you know, and I'm not being funny, a lot of cyclists don't observe the highway code. People will jump red lights. And so I think there are major concerns. But it's all about, of course, this general view in the Department for Transport, Transport for London, Transport for Greater Manchester, that basically let's just eradicate motorists, which is all tickety-boo if you live close to a train station and you work in the centre of a town. You know, for a lot of people, that's not the case.
And you don't have children to lug around.
Exactly.
You know, how are you supposed to deal with that?
Well, how we did in the 70s, you got a bus, so you walked, you know.
Got your lycra on.
Heaven forbid. I always look at and think, oh, bless them, they all have to get lifted and led and brought to school. We just had to walk.
But you know, when we always talk now about young people being overweight and children being overweight, and you think, get rid of the free bus pass. Right, walk them to school. I mean, it's something I did. I think I started walking to school when I was about 7 or 8, admittedly, with one of my mates to start.
We have too much fear now. We have too much fear to let our younger ones walk to school, and that's the problem. And because we've become a world full of fear, whereas before out you go, off you go. We don't have that anymore.
And actually, that is similar to the whole thing that's happened with the coronavirus, I think, because it was all whipped up by the media. So, of course, the coronavirus is a very serious thing, but it didn't turn out to be as bad. I mean, we all thought that we were all going to... This was the end for everybody, didn't we?
Well, we thought
and I think that level of media hype and media drive does have an impact.
It does.
It was bad.
Yeah, I know it was bad.
It was bad.
No, but I literally thought we were all going to get wiped out at one point.
Well, suppose it's not over yet.
No.
I don't know.
No, indeed.
Listen, the roads are there for all of us to share, for all of us to use. Tonya, Andre, thank you both very much indeed. These guys are back in an hour's time. Isabel.
Thanks, Eamonn. I'm taking everybody to Northern Ireland now. COVID restrictions in Britain's schools may be lifting, but children, of course, as we know, have suffered academically. We're looking at what the long-term effects might be. Employers say people moving from education into the workplace lack basic social skills. Well, our Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie has the story.
This is a school, and like any other school, it has teachers, children and buildings. But they offer much more than just knowledge.
Well, school is a really pivotal place for children. It is where they develop their relationships, they develop their interests in life, self-esteem and self-confidence. Education is and should be really experienced in a holistic sense. It is much more than learning inside the classroom. It is much more than gaining grades at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. School is a very rich and should be a very rich learning experience for children across the board.
Safety messages from government may have needed adjustment and inadvertently caused the separation of some in society.
At the beginning of lockdown, we practiced social distancing and we told our children to practice social distancing. I think in hindsight, what we probably meant, of course, was physical distancing. But I think that term social distancing has had a real impact on all of us. And I do think children have certainly reverted back socially, and they have been missing all of those really key vital skills. They haven't had the opportunity to experience them.
Lower position of the press up and hold. Physical activities are only back, and for many children this was their chance to shine, and for some the opportunity of leadership. Part-time employment is a great road into work life, but employers are noticing gaps in social interaction and a fear of failure.
They are more inward thinking, they have lack of initiative, and you have to really basically show them everything to the nth degree. Customers, you have to say, if a customer's passing, just say hello, good morning, good afternoon. You don't have to get into a real conversation with them, just say hello, so that you've seen them, they know that they've seen you, and if they need to get help, they know that they can come along and ask you. Children then think that they have to get exams to get to university, and if they don't get that, they're failures. And life is all about failing, but it's learning how to manage that failure and try again and again and again and again and learn from your mistakes and get on.
Most year groups at present, especially in post-primary school, have really lost 2 years worth of developing those skills face-to-face in school. So I think it's going to have a profound effect as we move through. We will have those gaps. And I think those gaps are widening. And I think especially, for children from disadvantaged backgrounds, children with additional needs, we see it all the more prevalent.
However we report COVID, whatever language we use, it seems long COVID may be more than just physical. Je m'appelle Dougie Beattie, information GB à Saint-Paul en Ireland du Nord.
Por favor.
What language was he speaking? His accents were next level. Anyway, there was Dougie, I think. Was Dougie, we think, reporting for us there. Time now, instead, to turn our attention to the sports. Paul Coit is in the studio for us.
Morning.
What an epic marathon that was yesterday in the Australian Open. 5 hours, and Nadal came back after 2 sets and he smashed it.
Oh, it was just a brilliant game of tennis. First 2 sets, Daniil Medvedev looks like the world number 2 is going to win it, and you're thinking it's just too far for Nadal. And this just shows why people like him are just such great champions and competitors, 35 years old, and going for and winning another 3 sets. It was just remarkable. I mean, absolutely remarkable. And of course, now he's taken Novak. Well, although all three of them shared it, Novak and you remember Novak Djokovic, used to play, and Roger Federer as well. So they're all on 20. He's now on 21 Grand Slams. Just incredible.
Yeah. What a peerless group of tennis players they've been, haven't they?
Absolutely.
What's the next Grand Slam?
Next one is going to be France. So, yeah, and Nadal, notoriously brilliant on clay. So that is usually his title really to lose every year.
So he could be 2 Grand Slam titles ahead by the time we get to Wimbledon.
Absolutely.
But that being said, his foot has been causing him a bit of trouble. And you just never know, do you? I feel like he got a bit lucky. Obviously not fully. But no, he struggled. He looked like he was struggling. No, he was struggling a bit. You know?
He was. I mean, he missed the US Open. He missed Wimbledon. And he honestly thought that maybe his career has come to an end because every great sportsman has to realise when the body is given up and think, right, now this is the time for me to get out. And has come back.
Now, both Isabel and I are a bit perturbed, Isabel, aren't we?
Okay. We are.
About Nadal.
I do like tennis whites.
Right.
And that's one of my favourite things about Wimbledon is that they have to wear the proper gear.
But it's a Wimbledon thing. It's only a Wimbledon.
Well, it's a tennis thing. It's just that all the other games they get to...
Well, I think, the old days of tennis wear, a nice pair of long white slacks and a jumper and a wooden racket, it all looked very nice, but it's only Wimbledon that actually have the rule that you have to wear all white, because if you turn up without the colour on, you're going to be out. Everywhere else, it's
but
a fashion
he would
frenzy,
look better in white. I don't like those those wristbands he's got, which are sort of green or turquoise. It's a big mismatch. No, I don't.
No, I know.
Not happy with the fashion at the moment.
Not happy with the fashion.
He's let himself down very badly, isn't he?
Well, there you go.
that's the problem.
Right, so then the women's singles title as well?
Ashley Barty, again, another great... I mean, it's really been terrific for the Australian Open because... I don't want to go back to him again, but with everything that happened with Novak Djokovic, and then you've got Ash Barty, world #1, first woman to win titles on 3 different surfaces, and the first Australian to win a title at the Australian Open in 42 years.
Wow, fantastic.
So, again, the whole of Australia's gone crazy over her, and she's a fantastic tennis player.
Right.
So, very good indeed.
The Mason Greenwood story dominates all the papers. Very, very sad, awful situation there. But when it comes to actually football on the pitch, we've got transfer deadline day tonight.
Yes, 11 o'clock.
So, Everton have got to appoint a manager today.
Yeah, it's one thing getting a new manager, but also so much is expected of Frank Lampard. It's such an important job for him. This is one that he has to get right. Derby was a good opening, job for him as a manager. Went OK, brought lots of players on loan, went very well. Chelsea come in. That's the club he always wanted, would always want to manage. It didn't work out the way he wanted. So now he's at that point, where do I go now? There's different offers. Norwich didn't happen. So now he's gone to Everton, and he goes to Everton on the day of the transfer deadline. I mean, if I was him, I'd probably wait until the day afterwards, because then he could say, well, they're not my signings. But then again, I guess it's going to work for him. So it looks like he's going to be announced today. But it's going to be a huge day. Transfer deadline day. It closes at 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to see a busier one. I really think there's been so many recently, and you remember them. I mean, you get a damp squib and you think, I'm going to wait till 11, something's going to be announced. But I think it's going to be very busy today.
Yeah, I think it will be busy. Yeah. So anything you can confirm transfer-wise?
Yeah, Luis Diaz... Porto and Colombia, he's moving to Liverpool. Looked like Spurs were going to get him, but now he's decided he wants to go to Liverpool. The other rumours that are around is Calvin Phillips, England player, of course, Leeds, possibly to West Ham. West Ham are going to have to break a transfer record if they're going to get him. Whether that's going to happen, I don't know.
He is in demand. There's so many teams that would have him.
Exactly. And with respect to West Ham, is that going to be the great move for him? I'm really not so sure. There's Kulusevski and Rodrigo Bentancur moving from Juventus to Tottenham. So it looks like they are going to get 2 players in, which is going to be very important for them. Tonga and Ndombele, who is Spurs midfielder, who's been really not up to the standard we expect, is like he's moving out to Lyon. Donny van der Beek, leaving your Manchester United, probably for Everton on loan.
Wouldn't blame the lad. Wouldn't blame the lad.
Well, he just hasn't got the game time.
Yeah.
I have to say, from a non-sporting perspective, someone who doesn't really follow football very closely, I just find the whole idea of transfers so stressful. Like, I would hate to be a player with a family, with a partner, with children in school. Like, it seems to me like it's quite a unique situation. It is. Compared to any other walk of life, when you're just uprooted at a moment's notice. And I feel sorry for them. I know they paid a lot of money.
It could be anywhere around the world, though. So that's it. It could be like, look, we've got this move, but it's the nature of the beast. That's
I bet all the partners and wives absolutely hate today. I bet there's lots of tears.
Yeah.
You know, Christine Lampard among them, maybe. She might not want to go to Liverpool. Who knows?
Poor Christine. Poor Christine.
It's tough, isn't it? These wags.
But it wasn't always like this. I mean, you used to be able to transfer players any time throughout the season.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
These windows and things that go on. Paul, thanks very much indeed. We're going to see you. And we should say, if anybody's expecting us to talk about the Mason Greenwood story for legal reasons, because he now has been arrested, we cannot comment on an active case like that. So just in case you're wondering why we're not discussing that. Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Now, hundreds of hospital porters, cleaners and catering staff have started a 2-week strike over pay. The Unite Union says some members employed by Serco at St Bart's, the Royal London and Whipps Cross are paid up to 15% less than those employed directly by the NHS.
More passengers could soon receive financial compensation for delayed domestic flights. The Transport Secretary has announced plans to reduce the payout threshold from a 3-hour delay to just 1 hour.
Spotify is set to add advisory warnings to podcasts that discuss COVID-19, redirecting users to coronavirus facts. It follows criticism over its hosting of the vaccine skeptic Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The musicians Neil Young and Joni Mitchell have both pulled their music from the platform, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have also raised their concerns over misinformation.
Now, you know, at GB News is our Twitter address, gbviews@gbnews.uk is our email address if you want to get in touch. And I think I'd be particularly interested to see how you came through those storms at the weekend. There is a warning in force for Scotland and the north of England until midday today. But as we understand it, the worst of the second storm has now passed through. That's called Storm Corrie, as in Coronation Street.
Yeah, apparently Storm Malik was named by, I forget which
Somebody
one of
called Malik.
one of the Scandi countries, whereas we actually, the Met Office named Storm Corrie. It feels more appropriate, doesn't it? Storm Corrie. Yeah, so send us your pictures. We want to know how you've been affected. Of course,
So my wife said to me, well, I thought these were named alphabetically.
Yeah, so did I. So what's going on there?
Because probably one's coming from Scandinavia.
Oh, right, they've thrown it.
Probably it's a different office.
Yeah,
you know,
we'll get to the bottom of that.
But, you know, it's really important for us to see how you came through the whole experience, how bad it was. And there's nothing... Have you ever actually heard a tree fall in a storm?
I haven't.
Well, I have, and it is the most... If you ever have, it's the most frightening, haunting sound. Biggest crack. It's just like a noise that you wouldn't do. The only other noise I've heard close to it was an iceberg breaking up.
Oh, wow.
You ever heard of an iceberg?
No, I haven't. But tell you what, I've covered so many storms as a reporter in my day. The sound that I always heard with storms was the chainsaws, because I would be there in the aftermath and you'd hear for days trees being chopped up. And, you know, shout out to all those people who are reconnecting power lines.
Pylons.
Hours and hours, dangerous work, often in really difficult conditions. So if you're one of those as well, we'd love to hear from you. What are you doing this morning? Stay with us.
I do respect tree surgeons.
Yeah, I do. It's a tough job.
They're probably very happy being a tree surgeon.
Yeah.
They are. We'll be back with the news top of the hour right after this. Going ahead to today, and Storm Corrie is now clearing eastwards, taking the storm force winds with it. We've just been reporting on that. Here are the details.
In the southwest, it'll be blustery and showery this lunchtime, whilst some sunny breaks are likely. There won't be as much sunshine as yesterday, and it will feel colder too.
There's also the risk of a few showers in the southeast. They shouldn't be especially heavy, though the odd sharp one is possible.
It will be blustery and showery across much of Wales. The heaviest showers are going to be towards the northwest of the county.
We move towards the Midlands, and the showers feed southeastwards. They will ease a little, so there will be fewer for the Midlands area. That being said, there will still be a few which could catch you out.
In the northeast, things should stay drier. The very strong winds we saw earlier in the day will be easing with plenty of sunshine on the cards there. Temperatures a touch down on average.
Here's Scotland. Showers will feed across Scotland, some of those falling as sleet or snow, especially over higher ground. Southeastern parts of the country have the best chance of staying dry.
Showers and blustery winds are expected across Northern Ireland. Notice that whilst it will be chilly today, it is going to turn milder as we go through the next few days.
So, overall, cloud and persistent rain will push into the northwest to leave a damp end to the day, and that is the weather and how it's shaping up for the rest of this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Two years to the day since the UK left the EU, the government launches a new Brexit freedoms bill.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, January the 31st. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Coming up, the Prime Minister vows to go faster on Brexit freedoms, pledging to ditch EU laws, saying the move will cut £1 billion worth of red tape for British business.
The government U-turns on mandatory COVID jabs for NHS and social care workers after the Omicron variant's found to be milder than first feared.
We'll be looking at the aftermath of storms Corey and Malik as thousands across the country wake up without power following those back-to-back storms.
Schools in Scotland will be shut today and thousands of people are still without power after back-to-back storms battered parts of the UK over the weekend.
An amber wind warning remains in place until midday over Scotland and the north of England after Storm Corey brought gusts of 92 miles per hour.
Yesterday, a 9-year-old boy in Staffordshire and a 60-year-old woman in Aberdeen were both killed by falling trees in Storm Malik.
And around 7,000 people in North England are still without power. Our North East reporter Rachel Sweeney sent us this report from one of the worst affected areas, Tyne and Wear.
2 women were trapped in debris when the gable end of a house came down in the Gateshead village of Winlayton. They'd been standing at a bus stop.
The young guy trying to move the rubble off them before the police come, and then the police came. And I think they told him, right, stand back, because you didn't know if any more was coming down, you know. Then the next day I went along, the fire brigade were there and everything.
And they were trapped?
They were actually, I think they were trapped with their legs,
So the rubble was on them?
Because they weren't moving, they were just like in a sitting position, if you know what I mean. There's one with our jacket, was all ripped at the back. Well, I should imagine where the rubber's come down and ripped that cord.
You would never ever think in a million years that would happen, especially waiting if stone. But it shows you how strong wind is, and in life there's no guarantees. You know, it's a really, I really feel sorry for the people who were there. I mean, the chances of that must be a million and one chance.
We've been in the northeast, we've just come to get used to it, really. But these last few years, the weather seems to be just getting worse and worse.
2 streets away, the clean-up operation needed much more than a dustpan and brush.
Well, I was passing it through my kitchen and I saw the trampoline fly over.
Is there a lot of damage in the area?
Yes, trees down, gable end down, Sion Terrace is gone.
15 minutes away in Bensham, the roof of a house completely blew off, leaving devastating damage. Neighbours said it was hard to believe as they began securing their own homes. In the County Durham village of Meadowfield, trees have been uprooted and fallen on gravestones. This is a much-loved part of Durham where the community helps maintain the gardens. There have been countless blocked roads, destroyed properties and power cuts. But in true North East fashion, there's also been a huge community pull together. It's another storm, but it's the same resilience here. Rachel Sweeney, GB News.
In politics, the Prime Minister will reveal a Brexit freedoms bill today to help ditch EU laws because he believes this move will cut £1 billion worth of red tape. Let's go to Downing Street. Our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, there. Tell us about this bill, Darren.
Well, Eamonn, it is 2 years, isn't it, since the UK left the European Union. Feels like a lot longer than that, given what's happened since. But there's been many suggestions that the government haven't really taken advantage of that situation when it comes to rules and regulations. What they did, Eamonn, was essentially supplant or copy over the rules from the EU into UK law to ensure a smooth transition, but many people want to see some of those rules changed. We have seen them tinker a little bit when it came to hours that HGV drivers could work last year, try and bolster essentially that service. Also changes when it comes to having to not just provide metric measurements in shops so that you can order things in, I don't know, kilos as well as pounds and ounces. But in the end, many people say the government need to go further with all of this. Now, they've come up with this plan, this new bill they're going to introduce, where they're going to set out the details of how they're going to achieve that. They argue it's going to lead to £1 billion worth of savings when it comes to red tapes. Though when governments promise to cut red tapes, Eamonn, I think you take it with a pinch of salt. They're always constantly promising, whether in or out of the EU, that they're going to make big savings for people. It doesn't necessarily transpire. And many are pointing to the one big thing the government could do outside the EU is get rid of VAT on fuel, which so far the government are refusing to do, even with massive rising energy prices.
OK, Darren, and I just want to ask you about vaccine mandates, something that Jubes and Co have been campaigning for with Outdate the Mandate. And now it seems as though the Prime Minister is going to do a U-turn on that.
Yeah, really big, significant story, this. NHS staff from this Thursday would have been the last day at which they would have had to start getting the jabs if they were to meet that April deadline of being fully vaccinated or potentially losing the job. This was going to affect some 77,000 people across the National Health Service. Well, it looks like the government, as you say, are going to do a U-turn on all of this. Ministers are meeting later, suggesting that they will no longer go ahead with all of this. Why? Well, in the end, I think it's because of the enormous pressure losing those tens of thousands of employees across the NHS would cause at a time, of course, in which the National Health Service is under an awful lot of strain. For those that are campaigning saying this was frankly not needed, they obviously point to the fact that vaccines do not necessarily prevent you from getting the coronavirus in terms of transmitting it to other people. Those, of course, in favour, though, say, well, it does stop you getting it and that stops you from passing it on. But I think in the end, despite those arguments around science, the big point is that lots of people were simply refusing to do this, and that would have put enormous pressure on services right across the NHS.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. I hear that one of the things he could possibly do with this Brexit bill is get rid of metric measurements.
Yeah.
What would the point
I
of that
know.
be?
Well, because we'd be harking back to wonderful times of...
See, in 1970, 71, when I was at school,
Yeah.
we had to learn metric. We had to come away from Imperial to learn all about metric. And now that I've learnt about metric, I've forgotten Imperial.
Yeah.
Do I want to go back to... Who wants to go back to Imperial?
Well, there's a good question. Let's do a shout-out,
Maybe
shall we,
you do.
this morning?
Maybe
Do you
you
want to
do.
go back to Imperial? I don't.
I sort of thought we've
Feels
reached the hump
old-fashioned.
in that there was a time where you think, oh, this was a good idea, but now you think,
Yeah, we're bringing
no,
out shillings and farthings. And
maybe not. But we are a strange mix. You know, we do miles and not kilometres.
That's true.
Things,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's... But anyway,
Let us know.
headlines are these with the time at 7:08. A very good morning to you.
A man in his 20s has been held in custody overnight on suspicion of rape and assault after Manchester United suspended footballer Mason Greenwood following allegations on social media. Greater Manchester Police say it's aware of images and a video posted by a woman reporting incidents of physical violence. Manchester United announced that Greenwood will not train or play for the Premier League club until further notice. He's yet to respond to the allegations.
Hundreds of hospital porters, cleaners and catering staff have started a 2-week strike over pay. The union Unite says some members employed by Serco at St Bart's, the Royal London and Whipps Cross are paid up to 15% less than those employed directly by the NHS.
More passengers could soon receive financial compensation for delayed domestic flights. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has announced plans to reduce the payout threshold from a 3-hour delay to just 1.
Streaming service Spotify set to add advisory warnings to podcasts to discuss COVID-19, redirecting users to coronavirus facts. Now, all of this is after criticism over Spotify's hosting of the vaccine skeptic Joe Rogan in his Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The singers Neil Young and Joni Mitchell have pulled their music from the platform, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have also raised concerns over misinformation. Now, over the weekend, new evidence has been emerging in the Madeleine McCann investigation.
That's right. The prime suspect, it has emerged, worked at holiday apartments in Portugal prior to the 3-year-old's disappearance. Let's bring in our home and security editor, Mark White, who joined us in the studio. So this is a bombshell documentary that's being aired in Germany tonight with these new revelations.
Yeah, on the face of it, it would seem to be some significant new revelations here. This man, Christian B., 45-year-old, I think he is now, has for the last couple of years been considered the prime suspect. So police have known that he worked in the area around the Algarve and Praia da Luz, where Madeleine McCann disappeared in 2007. In fact, on the 3rd of May this year, it's going to be 15 years since she disappeared.
It feels like yesterday.
It's incredible and very sad to actually mark that milestone when it happens. And there's been no trace of Madeleine since then. This man, as I say, the police believe is responsible for her abduction and her murder. They've been able to establish that he was in the Praia da Luz area around about the time that Madeleine disappeared. But lots of evidence, which is effectively not key evidence that could convict him, but circumstantial evidence altogether, sounds pretty compelling. But the latest evidence to add to that list of, well, it's not coincidences, it's mounting evidence, is an interview that this documentary for the German satellite channel Sat1 did with someone who has previously not been interviewed by the police. And they have confirmed that this man was a handyman. He did some work for the hotels in and around Praia da Luz, including the Ocean Club, where Madeleine McCann and her family were staying when she disappeared on the 3rd of May 2007. And he was there in the weeks and months prior to her disappearance.
So why, given the scrutiny of the world's cameras and media, the family's spotlight being kept on this story for so long, was this interview never conducted before by the police?
The police have said they've thanked the satellite broadcaster for a start for coming up with the documentary. They said they acknowledged there are some people that just don't want to talk to prosecutors or the police, that maybe will speak to the media. That's what they seem to have done in this case. So their findings, the interviews that have been done, are going to be passed to the German authorities. This man, Christian B., is serving a 7-year jail term in northern Germany. He was convicted of drug dealing and also of the rape of a 72-year-old American tourist in Praia de Luz 2 years before Madeleine McCann disappeared. As I say, he was a drifter, a handyman, but also a petty criminal involved in drug dealing and involved in, we understand, breaking into hotel apartments and alike to steal whatever he could. So the theory that the police have been working on is that on that evening that Madeleine disappeared, he was breaking into those apartments with a view to stealing something, happened across Madeleine McCann and took that opportunity. They have lots of circumstantial evidence, no key fact as yet. Another interesting element to the documentary is some cell site analysis from the mobile phone. Now, we know he had a mobile phone. The police have been able to trace the mobile phone to the Praia de Luz area around about the time that Madeleine McCann disappeared. Well, according to the documentary, they've done some more detailed examination of the cell site information and have been able to place the location that he was at within a 5-minute drive of Madeleine McCann at the time she disappeared.
How amazing that that cell site analysis then could still be doable all this time after. That's incredible.
Yeah, no, it is. It just shows you that, you know, you get enough pieces together that could be a compelling case that's put before the courts. We don't know if this will ever reach the courts, but, you know, the very fact that the German prosecutors have come out so publicly and said, he's our key suspect, we believe, sadly, that Madeleine has been murdered. They won't share the information that they have that leads them to that conclusion. Certainly, Madeleine's parents have been advised of that. As far as Scotland Yard is concerned, remember, it is also conducting a tandem investigation. It's been going on for about a decade at the cost of about £11 million. They are still officially terming it a missing persons investigation because they just don't have the compelling evidence to say one way or the other whether Madeleine is alive.
And you talked about German prosecutors. If it did ever go to court, would it be in Germany or would it be in Portugal, based on this current investigation?
It would be a German prosecution, yes. So it would be in Germany. They are the lead on this case at the moment. The Portuguese have long since given up after a very bungled investigation, amateurish investigation in the early months after Madeleine disappeared. If Scotland Yard had the key evidence, then, you know, it could be something they took primacy on. But at the moment, it's being led by German prosecutors who are assembling all of this very compelling evidence that's coming to light.
Okay.
Goodness me, 15 years. Mark White, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Just never ending.
It still shocks me as well. After all that time, it still shocks me, that story. So sad.
We'll take a break there. Coming up, we'll discuss the UK's decision to impose tough sanctions on businesses linked to Russia after this. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News. Welcome back. The time is 7:17. The government will target British investments of businesses with links to the Kremlin if Russia invades Ukraine. MPs say that asset freezes and travel bans will be placed on individuals and entities that have a strategic significance to the Russian government. Well, let's get more on this from Taras Kuzio. He's a research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and joins us this morning. Very good morning to you. Just explain a little bit about how this will work, really focusing in on those Russians with lots of money here in the UK?
Well, we have to be still a bit skeptical about any government measures. They've been talking about this for a long time. London has become a centre jokingly called Londongrad or Moscow on the Thames, with an influx of a huge amount of dirty money, not just from Russia, but from that region in general. But it's not just London. It's we're talking about Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Cyprus in particular. So it's a general European problem. Will something now be done about it? I remain skeptical. I hope so, but I remain skeptical.
OK, because we have this so-called golden visa scheme, which has allowed something like 700 Russian millionaires to come in and be given residency here. And now this new legislation, we're told, will enable the government to go after them, to target anyone in the bank sector, energy sector, oligarchs that are close to the Kremlin. I mean, in theory, that could work. The question is whether or not we've got a sort of disincentive to do it, because it could also hurt us.
Well, they have been buying a lot of different types of people: estate agents, political consultants, lobbyists, investment bankers, private schools. All of these have gained financially from this influx of dirty money. If they are gone after now with this sanctions, assuming Russia invades Ukraine, the group that's going to benefit the most, of course, are lawyers, because a lot of these Russians are going to take their cases to courts, and it will be a long, drawn-out process. I'm in favor of them doing it, but it's a bit late in the day. This all began, by the way, under the Labour Party about 20 years ago, and it's continued by the Conservative Party. And as I say, it's a British but a generally European problem. In Malta, they were selling passports to Russians. I mean, because European Union passports. So it's a general problem. I hope that they get tough, but we should all remain skeptical.
People would be far more in favour of seeing oligarchs fighting it out in the courts than actual blood being shed on the border. On that note, do you share the optimism of Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, that there could still be a diplomatic resolution to this, or do you lean more towards the camp that Liz Truss has come out on over the weekend saying it's all but inevitable that they will invade Ukraine?
I've never believed that a full-scale invasion is on the cards, because there aren't enough Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. Ukraine is a country bigger than the size of France. It would require something in the region of 500,600,000 Russian troops to occupy Ukraine and to keep it occupied. And they haven't got that. They've got 150, maybe up to 170 by the next few days. So there isn't enough troops. So this is likely to be more is a mixture of Putin, who's a typical bully boy. He's using those troops to add pressure to the diplomatic demands or ultimatums that he's making to the West, to NATO in particular, and also potentially to do some smaller scale military incursions into Ukraine, which will be combined with the usual other areas of hybrid warfare activities, such as cyber war, economic and energy pressure, terrorism, political destabilization. So certainly this will continue. Putin has an obsession with Ukraine. He sees it as a Russian land, and he's a very angry old man who needs anger management classes. So he certainly will continue, and of course he's president for life. So this kind of crisis will happen, reappear every now and again throughout the next 10, 15, 20 years as he's still Russian president. So
Taras,
we should...
the Prime Minister will reappear in Eastern Europe this week to underline, I suppose, Britain's support for Ukraine. Does that really do any good?
Yes, Britain has stood out in this crisis as the leading European country supporting Ukraine. In some ways, as a traditional ally of the US, backing up the US, showing both a global Britain in the post-Brexit era, that it's forging a new foreign policy identity, but also Britain never traditionally had any pro-Russian sentiment, unlike, say, France and Germany. And therefore, there isn't really that sort of audience here that will be supporting the Kremlin side, whereas Germany is a hopeless case in many ways, and France, of course, has always had that anti-Americanism, which has then become pro-Russianism or wanting to do a deal with Russia. So Britain stands out. It has the largest military forces out after Germany in Europe, but Germany, we know, is quite passive on that. So it is very important, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for your take, Taras Kuzio. Taras is a research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you. The time is 24 minutes past 7. As COVID restrictions in Britain's schools lift, children may have suffered academically. But what are the longer-term effects? Employers say people moving from education into the workplace lack basic social skills.
Yes, our Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie takes up the story.
This is a school, and like any other school, it has teachers, children and buildings. But they offer much more than just knowledge.
Well, school is a really pivotal place for children. It is where they develop their relationships, they develop their interests in life, self-esteem and self-confidence. Education is and should be really experienced in a holistic sense. It is much more than learning inside the classroom. It is much more than gaining grades at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5. School is a very rich and should be a very rich learning experience for children across the board.
Safety messages from government may have needed adjustment and inadvertently caused the separation of some in society.
At the beginning of lockdown, we practiced social distancing and we told our children to practice social distancing. I think in hindsight, what we probably meant, of course, was physical distancing. But I think that term social distancing has had a real impact on all of us. And I do think children have certainly reverted back socially, and they have been missing all of those really key vital skills. They haven't had the opportunity to experience them.
Lower position of the press up and hold. Physical activities are only back, and for many children this was their chance to shine, and for some the opportunity of leadership. Part-time employment is a great road into work life, but employers are noticing gaps in social interaction and a fear of failure.
They are more inward thinking, they have lack of initiative, and you have to really basically show them everything to the nth degree. Customers, you have to say, if customers passing, just say hello, good morning, good afternoon. You don't have to get into a real conversation with them, just say hello, so that you've seen them, they know that they've seen you, and if they need to get help, they know that they can come along and ask you. Children then think that they have to get exams to get to university, and if they don't get that, they're failures. And life is all about failing, but it's learning how to manage that failure and try again and again and again and again and learn from your mistakes and get on.
Most year groups at present, especially in post-primary school, have really lost 2 years worth of developing those skills face-to-face in school. So I think it's going to have a profound effect as we move through. We will have those gaps. And I think those gaps are widening. And I think especially, you know, for children from disadvantaged backgrounds, children with additional needs, we see it all the more prevalent.
However we report COVID, whatever language we use, it seems long COVID may be more than just physical. Je m'appelle Dougie Information GB à Saint-Paul on Ireland du Nord.
Of course you are, Dougie. Of course you are.
I still don't know what he's saying at the end.
But he's saying this is Dougie Beaton.
I think he's trying to tell us the time.
No, he's not.
At the end, no, at une heure or something. No?
Information, GB News, didn't he?
Assez fair, I don't know. I don't know. Dougie, tell us what you're saying at the end. It's really bothering me.
Dougie, tell us what you're saying normally, or with that.
I couldn't make that joke. As a Northern Irishman, you can. Look, stay with us. After the break, we'll be going through your papers. A different story on every one, so we'll be taking a look at what's making those today.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome to our browse through Monday morning papers with Tanya Buxton, the GB News presenter, and cook, and Andre Walker, political commentator. Very good to see both of you. Thank you very much for this. Page 17 in the Express, Tanya, first of all, and this is something we could probably all identify with at the moment. Sleepiness, tiredness, but this is extreme exhaustion, and it features children. Why?
Because 500,000 children in Britain don't have a bed to sleep in.
They literally don't have a bed.
They don't have a bed.
So they sleep on the floor, they sleep on the couch?
They're sleeping either, there's 3 in a bed, or
camp
sleeping
bed,
on couches on the floor, so they're completely exhausted.
Yeah.
And this is what's coming through. And I just can't understand how we can be in Britain today and we can have 500,000 children who don't have beds to sleep in.
Well, please explain this to me. This is a form of poverty, then?
It is a form of poverty, but what happens is circumstances change for people. So we have a mother here, Charlotte Midgley, who said that everything got ruined in a flood.
Yeah.
So everything got mouldy and awful. They relocated them, but they relocated them into a flat with absolutely no furniture.
Awful.
And she was too embarrassed to ask for help. It's embarrassing when you're a mother to have to ask for a bed for your child. And, and we're hearing the same thing again and again and again. And a lot of charities are helping. Buttle UK is one of the charities that's helping get beds for children. But this is really something where, you know, I think the government put their nose into our lives far too much. This is one place that I would welcome them to put their nose in and make sure that every single child in Britain has a decent bed to sleep in.
That's a basic human right, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, are we a third world country?
Well, by judging by that, we are.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things the pandemic has brought home is the extent of poverty. I mean, I never once really believed that somebody couldn't give their kid a bit of toast or cornflakes or something for breakfast. And I've been involved in so many food banks and food poverty groups and whatever it is to realise this is a real thing. This is an absolute...
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when you hear about evacuations in the Second World War, because what happened was people in comparatively well-to-do areas out in the country would see the physical condition, the quality of the clothing, the level of nutrition of children who'd come from the inner cities. And there was genuinely a huge amount of shock about it. But look, you know, the government can't step in on absolutely everything, but you have to say, if people can't afford a bed needs to be provided.
What really gets me is we talk about this foreign aid budget, and I look at something like this and I say, what? At a time when you've got 500,000 children have no bed, no proper bed to sleep in. I mean, it's the appropriation of funds.
But there is a controversial point. If you look at America with food stamps, there's something called primary and secondary poverty. Primary poverty is just not having enough money. Secondary poverty is not spending your money correctly. What I would say is, don't bother giving people the money for these beds. Just deliver them. Just deliver them.
Absolutely, but nothing's really changed. So, in another lifetime, I was a school teacher in Tottenham. So 25 years ago, I was teaching in Tottenham, and I saw such neglect and such poverty then. Nothing's changing.
Nothing changes.
And that's what exasperates me. You know, we can find money for things that I think are completely irrelevant, but the really basic things they don't seem to be finding money for.
Well, they need a champion for this. They need, and is this a crusade then in the Express?
Yes, the Express is now doing a whole crusade to get a bed for every head.
But of course, the other thing is, and this is a function of our democratic system, you know, time and time again, money is poured into pensioners, some of whom need it, but others of whom don't need it, and then children are neglected. Why? Because they don't vote. I know it's an obvious comment to make, but, you know, you're paying a winter fuel payment to multimillionaires for years and years and years, and then these kids can't get a bed. And the reality is, these beds are not particularly expensive. No. But what we've found time and time again, and I've found it in my family with video games, kids who do not get a decent night's sleep do not perform at school. It's a complete disaster.
Absolutely true.
And this is extreme exhaustion we're talking about. We're not just talking about being tired for one day or whatever. Andre, in the Times, this is page 3 of the Times, and this is the Sussexes.
Oh, do you know, we were talking about this Joe Rogan thing and about Spotify and the fact that he's been accused of being anti-vax, and people are all walking away from Spotify as a result. Now, in the earlier press preview, we talked about the fact that, you know, whether this is free speech or not, but the Sussexes have weighed in. They're so angry about this that they're not giving back the £18 million that they've been paid by Spotify. And I just, you know, they always make me laugh because they always want to jump onto every single trend.
But they're now experts in vaccination.
They are experts, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what the funny thing I find about him is he's lived such a sheltered life that when he discovers things, he feels like it's the first time anybody's ever found out about it. Like the first time he heard about racism, it was like a revelation to him, wasn't it? I mean, I find the two of them pretty distasteful, in absolute honesty, and I find that they're constantly jumping on bandwagons. I'll be honest with you, I don't care about the Joe Rogan bandwagon, but it's when they constantly cause the Queen hassle, who, let's remember, OK, she's a highly privileged person, she's had a great life, but she's also recently lost her husband and been cooped up.
And I don't know anyone who works as hard as her.
Yes.
I don't know anyone who works as hard as her. Look at her age and look how hard she's worked. Whether you're a royalist or not, her work ethic is something that we can all learn from.
The other thing is, and I don't want to be disrespectful to our friends in the military, but every year this country gives the Queen the Trooping of the Colour for her official birthday. She's got to be a bit bored of it after 70 of them. I mean, it's not, oh, not that again. I mean, I went once, it was quite good, but I'm not sure I'd go 70 times.
Where do you stand on the Sussexes and their constant preaching?
I think they really do need to wind their necks in, and it's become like a tribal thing, hasn't it? So you can listen to what they do, and you're not allowed to have a common, sensible opinion about it, because if you say anything against the Sussexes, then you're you're racist and you have sexist, you name it. You're all the issues things. But some of the things they do are so dreadful and so awful, and they don't have any common sense, and they are privileged, really quite unpleasant people now.
What you normally do with any royal duke is give them a dukedom in England, you give them an earldom in Scotland and a barony in Northern Ireland, and that's what's happened. So he is the Earl of Dumbarton, and she turned round to the media and said that she was disgusted that her son would take the courtesy title Earl of Dumbarton because they deliberately put dumb in the name. You think,
seriously?
You are the Countess.
Being serious?
Yes, she is the Countess of Dumbarton, and she's just this town where she's the Countess of. Unbelievable.
I rest my case.
Oh, dear.
Just see what more can you say about that. I rest my case.
Tonya, in the Telegraph, a New Zealand journalist who's pregnant, she's forced to move to Afghanistan because
New Zealand will not let her back in because
of COVID.
Because of their ridiculous COVID rules, and we know that because we've got our own Dan Wooten here who hasn't seen his family for 2 years because New Zealand has the most ridiculous, draconian, non-commonsensical COVID rules.
But have they got COVID?
Well, they will.
But what I'm saying is, you're saying it's ridiculous, but if they've got no COVID cases, then it obviously works.
Well, if you want to be in a prison where you don't mix with anybody else apart from this bubble of people, then you can do that. And when they do get the odd case of COVID, they lock down, they lock their people. Who wants to live like that?
But the other thing about New Zealand, not being funny, but it is quite big, right? So the reality is, they will find it easier to lock people down because people are not living cheek by jowl like they are in Brixton. So it is easier for them.
This is a virus. It's an unpleasant virus, and we know that from statistics that it kills you if you are older, if you are very overweight, or if you have comorbidities.
All right, don't look at me.
But you don't need to. But you don't need to be doing it for all the young. The way that they're behaving here, and as she quotes here, this Charlotte Bellis, she said, "When the Taliban offers you a pregnant unmarried woman safe haven, you know your situation is messed up. I mean, how can that be? The Taliban they reprimand women that get pregnant outside of marriage. So she's having to go to the Taliban, some people who fundamentally disagree with where she is, because she can't go back to her
And it's
homeland.
amazing, actually, when you think, can you imagine the Taliban government are social liberals compared to the government of New Zealand?
So basically, her point is she's nowhere to go and she's asked to stay in Afghanistan.
It's the only other place that she has a visa.
Right, gotcha. Okay.
It's the only place you can go.
Now, let's talk about drains. This is Dominic Cummings. This is in the Mail, page 10. So he thinks, he aligns what he's doing at the moment like fixing drains. Why is that?
Well, I don't want to go into detail, but obviously a blocked drain will be slightly unpleasant. Yes, that's right. Let's not do it this time in the morning. But Dominic Cummings, as you know, has launched this huge attack on Boris Johnson, presumably to support Michael Gove for Prime Minister, but we can't say that with any degree of certainty. But the man, I'll tell you one thing that I find extraordinary about Dominic Cummings. He's not bothered, is he? Right? He's well up for just openly being critical of people. And I think that he said that now he... very keen on the Grey Report leading to Boris Johnson leaving office. And he says that getting rid of him will be like unblocking the drains, which is a very, very pleasant analogy. But, the knives are out for Boris Johnson. But it is interesting. Other newspapers today have said that some of the big Conservative donors are saying that they're not as worried about Partygate as perhaps others are. The reason I make that point, having, been involved in Conservative politics in the past, the Conservative Party is an election machine and it needs a lot of money. And if these big donors stay on side, then it may well be that there's a way of surviving for Boris Johnson.
OK, for the moment, Andre and Tonya, thank you both very much indeed. The guys are back in an hour's time. Here's Isabel.
We're going to be talking about something we don't hear very often, and that is that women are appearing to develop problems with gambling. 1 million women in Great Britain are now at risk of experiencing harm from it. The charity Gamble Aware are attempting to highlight the warning signs so that people can seek support. Well, joining us to discuss this more is GP Dr. Ellie Cannon and Lisa Walker, who herself struggled with gambling and the harms that it can entail. So very warm welcome to both of you. Starting with you, Lisa, if I may. I know that you struggled with gambling for nearly 2 decades. Just tell us a little bit about how you fell into it and when you realised you had a problem.
So I actually fell into gambling after winning a 6-figure sum when I was 29 years old at a casino in Southend. I won over £127,000.
Wow.
Now, that should have been the best day of my life, but unfortunately, my gambling really took off then. I started gambling every day at the bookmakers, at the casino, at my local dog track, anywhere that I could place a bet. And it wasn't until 16 years later, when I was 45, I actually started my recovery through Gamblers Anonymous. But it took me a long time to realise I had such a huge financial impact. I lost my house, I ended up homeless, and I ended up in a hostel with my 2 children through gambling. So I just want to say a big thank you to Gamble Aware for raising, this serious subject of women and gambling harms. And to anybody that's out there that's suffering, please don't suffer in silence.
Really amazing story. I want to bring in Ellie Cannon now to talk about, how often we hear about women getting stuck in this cycle of gambling addiction. Is it becoming increasingly common for you to have patients with this?
Well, it's interesting because the research that Gamble Aware have done have actually shown that women are so embarrassed and guilty about gambling that actually they don't come forward. They're half as likely to come forward as men. So when I think about clinic and the number of patients I have who are women who are suffering the harms of gambling, they're actually few and far between. And I think that's why there is this drive today, the start of this new campaign, really to highlight the problem for women who are gambling and the effects they can suffer, because as you've said, it's just not something that we're talking about. And all of us now have a 24-hour casino in our pockets on our phone. So it's so much easier.
As you say, number of women being treated has doubled in the last 5 years. Lisa, just tell me, can you relate to what Ellie was saying there about how many women feel ashamed about coming forward? I mean, did you find this whole thing an isolating experience? And how hard was it to get help?
Oh, totally relate to what Dr. Ellie's just said. As a woman with an addiction to gambling, I felt so much shame and stigma. And especially because I had my 2 children and I ended up in a hostel, I didn't know where to turn to. And when I did go up for help at the local council when I was homeless, they said to me that they'd rather me have a drink or drug problem because they don't know what to do with a compulsive gambler. And I'm just hoping that times are changing now. And when people do access their doctors or do access health providers, that people do understand that gambling addiction is a true addiction, and there's so many women out there that need our help to prevent them from what I did. And any campaign is it's better than nothing. So for any woman at the moment, or any member of their family that thinks like we know somebody that might be in starting a gambling addiction, reach out. Go on the websites. There's so many different fantastic support organisations out there. And also, I started my recovery in Gamblers Anonymous, and there was 2 women in there and 35 men. Now, my GA group I go to now in Upminster, there's at least 6 women that go. So times are changing, but it's very slow. But hopefully this campaign is going to raise vital awareness. And what Dr. Ellie's doing is absolutely fantastic as well.
Ellie, in the process of raising awareness, what are the things that we should all be looking out for, whether we're worried about a friend or a loved one, or indeed if we're struggling with it ourselves? What are the telltale signs that perhaps this isn't just a little hobby now, this is a problem?
Mm-hmm. So there are 3 early warning signs that Gamble Aware want women to think about. And this really is the idea that you could be sort of heading into the harms from gambling. And that is if you are spending more than you can afford, if you are finding that time is running away from you when you're gambling. We all know that feeling on social media, but some people have that feeling also with gambling, where time just goes because they've been so long on the apps. And then the third one would be that you're hiding gambling from people, and hiding things is often a sign of an addiction. We see that also with alcohol addiction. So they're the 3 things: losing track of money, losing track of time, and hiding the problem. And they could be the call for you to wake up, have a chat to your GP, speak to the National Gambling Helpline, have a look online at begambleaware.org and see how you can start to rein in the problem before it really starts to cause harm.
Advice. Lisa, I just want to ask you finally, you've obviously had help now, you continue to get support from Gamblers Anonymous, but to people who are afraid that they might not have a life after addiction, have you been able to piece your life back together? Are you able to support your kids in a way that you weren't before?
Oh yeah, my life has changed. So I'm a peer support worker for a charity called Bet No More. So I counsel people now with gambling addictions. My children are now 25 and 26, and and they're all so proud of me because I've battled an addiction for a long, long time, and I've overcome it. And that is, I want to give a message of hope today that any addiction you can get over with help and the right treatment and the right support. There's help out there.
Okay, Lisa Walker, what an inspirational story. Well done for coming forward. It can't be easy. And Ellie Cannon, thank you so much for raising awareness about this really important issue. Good to see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, Lisa. Right, we're out and about. Today we're in Kent, we're in Margate. Going to meet a lovely couple now, Hannah and Wendell Bars, who are foster carers. Ellie Costello will bring you the story then on your doorstep. Ellie.
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel, from a very sunny Margate. Yes, the sun has come up. You can actually see me now. We're on this lovely residential street with Victorian villas in the heart of Margate, and I will take you down to the beach a little bit later on. And Margate has got such a fascinating history. 250 years ago, this was the destination of choice for people coming out from London to spend their holidays on the sandy beaches of Margate. And now there's this big emphasis on the regeneration of Margate to bring it into modern times, lots of investment and bringing tourists to the town as well. So it's a very, very exciting time to live in Margate. And we're going to meet a really amazing couple now. We're just heading into this house here just behind us. We're going to be here all morning in Margate talking to people about the issues that matter to them and also getting their reaction to some of the biggest news stories of the day. So let's have a little knock on this door. This is number 50. Hopefully they're awake for us. Good morning. You are live on TV and on radio. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience at home?
I'm Hannah Bars, and I'm in Margate.
You're in Margate, lovely sunny Margate. Well, should we just pop inside and we can ask you about...
Yeah,
thank you so much. You've got such a lovely home.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Want to come through here?
Yes, please. Thank you. Perfect.
Have a seat.
Well, thank you very much for having us. It's nice to be inside and warm.
That's all right.
So how long have you lived in Margate and what do you like about living here?
I have lived here since I moved back to have my children when I was around 22. I lived here first when I was 8 and then moved back. So everyone who comes to Margate ends up moving back because it's lovely.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that because, you know, there are a lot of people that grow up here and then move maybe to London, into the city to get work, but lots of people do come back. So what is the draw to Margate? What brought you back here?
I think, you know, God's blessed us with the most amazing sandy beaches here. So, you know, we've got miles and miles of sandy beaches, which is a great place to bring up children because it's free, especially in lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, you've got that free resource on your doorstep, and Margate itself is just such a friendly, colourful place to be. The people are so sociable here. We've got such wonderful little independent shops and eateries. I think everyone who comes to Margate brings something new, so it makes it such an eclectic place. It's really lovely.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that struck me the most about being in Margate. I came for the first time last week. Everyone is so friendly, and there is this emphasis, isn't there, on buying local and buying small. It's such a community feel here, isn't there?
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, we've got our own farmers market and things that meets once a month. We've got lots of groups that meet regularly, and it is local people that support local people, which is really lovely. So it's also a place that attracts creatives.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of different creatives that come here, and they love to share what they do. They love to share their produce that they make and how they make it. So you've got places like Clay Space up the road who for under £10, you can spend the morning making pottery on the wheel and, learning from Bridget how to do wonderful things. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, no, it really is a wonderful place to be. And I want to talk about you because you're a wonderful person and you're a foster carer.
I am.
You look after children. So tell us about that and why you love doing that so much.
OK, so we've done that for 10 years and we specialise now in parent and child placement. So we have the mums and the dads sometimes come and stay with us with their babies. And it teaches them, it's parents who maybe haven't had the best of starts in their life themselves, and it teaches them how to look after their children and, giving them the parenting skills that maybe they haven't been given, so that hopefully they can go home with their children instead of children going into care. That's the main thing for me, keeping children out of the care system.
Hannah, you are absolutely amazing, and so many people will be watching at home and thinking, what drives you to do that? I mean, what spurs you to do that for other people?
Well, I think, as a family, we've always been in that sort of world, the care world, and obviously I love children, love babies. Anyone that knows me, knows that. And it's helping people who haven't been helped. I've had a privileged upbringing. I've had a lovely family that looked after me really well. Not everyone's had that. And so it's nice to be able to offer that and to show people that there is a different way and there's a good way that they can then look after their children and pass that on,
Well, you really are a wonderful person. Those families and those children are so lucky to have you in such a beautiful home as well. I did want to ask you about a few of the news stories that are going on in the world today and what we're talking about on the breakfast programme. Should we start with Partygate, which has been all over the papers and I think what everyone's been talking about for the past few weeks. There are rumours on the ground now that Boris Johnson is going to receive that report today. It won't be made public for a few more days at least. What do you think of this whole Partygate scandal? Should we be moving on from this, or is it important that we talk about it?
I think it's important we talk about it, definitely. I think it's a crying shame that resources and time and money have had to be spent on investigating something that should never have happened. But there we are, we have to deal with it now, and so those making the rules shouldn't be breaking the rules. So it's just a real shame that we've had to go down this road.
And another issue that I think it's really important that we touch upon is this national insurance hike that was confirmed over the weekend by Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. It's going to be really difficult for lots of families, especially families that you look after and you help to care for their children.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the issue is more that wages don't go up with that inflation, and so that's just putting people that are already on the breadline or in poverty under the breadline. So it really doesn't help anyone that's working for a living.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough winter for lots of people. Well, Hannah, fantastic to talk to you. You're a wonderful person, and thank you for everything that you do for local children and families. It really was great to meet you. So, Hannah, we'll let you get along with your day. Thank you very much for your time. Well, Eamonn and Isabel, Hannah is absolutely amazing, isn't she? So we're going to leave this residential part of Margate now. We're going to head into the Old Town. I'm going to show you some of the shops.
Oh,
thanks, Sally.
Just love Hannah.
We want to tour around Hannah's house now. It looks so cosy on this cold day. Nice to see it. Thanks, Ellie. Thank you very much indeed, and lovely to see what Hannah does.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, with the time at 5 minutes to 8, we're going to take a break. Coming up.
Yeah, the Prime Minister sets out Brexit plans, but could they be overshadowed by the Partygate report? We'll have all the details after the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If
you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Two years to the day since the UK left the EU, the government launches a new Brexit freedoms bill.
Good morning. It's nearly 8 o'clock on Monday, January the 31st. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Coming up, the Prime Minister vows to go faster on Brexit freedoms, pledging to ditch EU laws, saying the move will cut £1 billion worth of red tape for British businesses.
The government U-turns on mandatory COVID jabs for NHS and social care workers after the Omicron variant is found to be milder than first feared.
The aftermath of storms Corey and Malik. Our North East reporter Rachel Sweeney is in County Durham. Schools in Scotland will be shut today and thousands of people are still without power after back-to-back storms battered parts of the UK over the weekend.
An amber wind warning remains in place until midday after Storm Corey brought gusts of 92 miles per hour. Yesterday, a 9-year-old boy in Staffordshire and a 60-year-old woman in Aberdeen were killed by falling trees in Storm Malik, and around 7,000 people in North England are still without power.
Rachel is live for us now, Meadowfield in County Durham. So let's go there and find out the situation, Rachel.
Well, tens of thousands of people have been left without power for the second time in 2 months. There's definitely a feeling of frustration here. Storm Malik wasn't as bad as Storm Arwen. Storm Arwen was colossal damage. It ripped through the northeast of England, but Malik was much worse than anybody expected. And then Storm Corey last night on top of that, it just makes the recovery effort very difficult. These storms come in, they weaken our trees, structures, buildings, so that when the next storm comes in, there's more damage and the recovery effort is just so hard. Winds last night that was so loud over the 3 storms, 90 miles an hour in Northumberland, 75 miles an hour here in Durham. Durham was like, I described it as an escape room at the weekend. This village of Meadowfield, it was almost impossible to get out of. All of the roads were closed. There was trees everywhere, really difficult. It's going to be a long clean-up operation.
So a long clean-up operation. We're seeing some evidence there of the storm that went through. Has the worst passed? Are they expecting any more today?
I think the worst of it's over, but that's why I'm in this open area, because we've had so many warnings about flying debris and falling trees. If you are going to go out, it is better to stay in open areas like this. Now, we need to talk about Northern Power Grid, because they were heavily criticised following Storm Arwen for their response. It has been better here for Malik and Corey. They had 78,000 people who lost power at the start of the storm, 30,000 people with no power on Saturday afternoon. That dropped to 20,000 on Sunday morning. And last night when I spoke to Northern Power Grid at about 8 o'clock, they said that it was an estimated 7,000 without power, but they thought that by now, although we haven't had an update, it will be around 4,000. But that's 4 4,000 people, 4,000 homes, you know, without power. Arwen had 130,000 people without power. And you'll remember I was up in Northumberland 2 weeks after Storm Arwen hit, and people there were still relying on generators. So the response there was much, much, much worse. Northern Power Grid said that before Malik, lessons had been learnt. I'll just run you through what they said. They said that they had two key lessons. They said they needed to make the website more resilient, and they've done that by making a queuing system. And they said that they needed to better communicate with customers. A lot of people were complaining, saying, you said it was going to be off in 2 hours, and then, you know, 2 days later they're still without power. Customers who didn't have power at 8 o'clock yesterday morning, Northern Power Grid have said that they'll pay up to £15 per person per meal. But, you know, is this a bigger problem? I mean, North Durham MP Kevin Jones says that we need a long-term plan, that an action plan is needed to address the resilience of the power grid in this country.
OK, Rachel, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. We're just going to bring you up to date with the headlines with the time at 8:02. A man in his 20s has been arrested on suspicion of rape and assault after Manchester United suspended their footballer Mason Greenwood following allegations on social media.
Greater Manchester Police says it's aware of images and videos posted by a woman reporting incidents of physical violence. Manchester United announced that Greenwood will not train or play for the Premier League club until further notice. We understand Mr Greenwood denies wrongdoing.
Hundreds of hospital porters, cleaners and catering staff have started a 2-week strike over pay. Unite says some members employed by Serco at St Bart's, the Royal London and Whipps Cross are paid up to 15% less than those employed directly by the NHS.
Police in Canada's capital, Ottawa, are investigating possible criminal charges after anti-vaccine protesters allegedly urinated on the National War Memorial and defaced a statue of the Canadian hero Terry Fox. The protests, which are against vaccine mandates for truckers crossing the US-Canada border, brought the city to a standstill for a second day on Sunday.
More passengers could soon receive financial compensation for delayed domestic flights. The Transport Secretary has announced plans to reduce the payout threshold from a 3-hour delay to just 1 hour.
Spotify is set to add advisory warnings to podcasts that discuss COVID-19, redirecting users to coronavirus facts. It follows criticism over its hosting of the Vaccine Skeptic Joe Rogan Experience podcast. The singers Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulled their music from the platform, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have also raised concerns over misinformation.
The charity Gamble Aware says up to 1 million women are at risk of problem gambling. Its research suggests that 2 out of 5 don't seek the help they need due to stigma, and many increase gambling during the winter months.
And anyone aged 21 and under can now travel for free on buses in Scotland. More than 900,000 people are eligible for the scheme, but they'll need to get a national entitlement card or Young Scot NEC to do so.
We're going to Downing Street now to get an update on what the Prime Minister will reveal in what's termed a Brexit Freedoms Bill. This is to help ditch EU laws. Let's go to Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, for more on this. Darren.
Yeah, very good morning, Eamonn. It is 2 years since the UK left the EU, since Brexit Day, and there's been criticism of the government that they've not really taken advantage of that as much as they could do, and that is why the government is talking about bringing in this kind of Brexit bill to look at some of the rules and regulations that could change now that we're not inside the EU. Many of them, of course, were just simply reimposed into UK law from EU law to smooth that transition, but the government is now looking at scrapping some of them. Last year, for example, it relaxed the rules on the number of hours that HGV drivers had to work to ease the crisis there. We know also, for example, they've been looking at allowing shops to use more imperial measurements, so use pounds and ounces and not just kilograms. But also the government would suggest more serious stuff about cutting back on rules and regulations that cost billions of pounds to the economy. Though it must be said, Eamonn, that we do hear this quite a lot from the government about getting rid of rules and regulations, that it's all going to save lots of money, it's going to create lots of jobs. in the end, every government promises that. I'm not entirely sure it does happen. But clearly the government feels that this is a good juncture, unsurprisingly, in this very difficult week for them to make this announcement. And we're going to get further details later on today.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. Other things, of course, politically today.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about national insurance. This really interesting joint article in the Sunday Times. Yeah, shoulder to shoulder, Rishi Sunak and the Prime Minister. I wonder whether or not that was something that the Prime Minister did voluntarily, whether he was really on board with this or it was an optics thing. What's your read on this joint op-ed yesterday?
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it? Because the Prime Minister last week, Isabel, was given the impression that he may well U-turn on this national insurance rise that's due at the start of April, 1.25%, going to cost the average taxpayer around 500 quid a year. Many Conservative MPs pretty angry about all of this, suggesting that, first of all, this is the breaking of a manifesto pledge not to raise national insurance, but second of all, that it is coming at the worst possible time as energy prices increase, as inflation is pretty high, a cost of living crisis that few people can afford all of this. Now, the government's argument is that essentially they do need to pay for the NHS and the backlog that's been created due to the coronavirus pandemic, and they also want to sort out social care in the long term. But politically, as I say, quite tricky for the Prime Minister. Fascinating yesterday that, as you say, him and the Chancellor published this joint letter in the Sunday Times insisting it would go ahead. I think that gives them very little wriggle room to change their minds in the future. But still, many Conservative MPs pleading with Boris Johnson to look at this again, because they fear that this will actually do a lot of political damage, because people will notice that their taxes are going up precisely at the time as fuel bills and food prices, and frankly a lot of other things, are going up in price at the same time.
And just finally, Darren, the Prime Minister expected this week to be travelling to Eastern Europe, to the border of Ukraine and Russia, to try and dial down tensions there. How worried are Downing Street about escalating problems on the border?
Yeah, they clearly are very worried. We heard from Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, yesterday, suggesting that she thought that war was still pretty likely. We know that Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, is in Budapest this morning, speaking to the Hungarians about all of this. And you're right in saying that the Prime Minister is going to travel to Eastern Europe a little later in the week. Liz Truss also expected in Moscow at some stage. In saying that, it's always, of course, quite difficult to work out how Britain alone would make much of a difference. That's why they're clearly trying to link up with different European allies. I suspect that Boris Johnson will visit many of those NATO allies on that visit later on this week. But it is a busy week in Downing Street. Aside from that, we've also got the publication of the Levelling Up report from Michael Gove, a flagship of this government's entire policy, essentially, for this Parliament in trying to improve things, particularly in the north of England. And in addition to that, and I said we were going to have it last week, I'll suggest we may well have it this week, we are also waiting for Sue Gray's report into the parties, the alleged parties in Downing Street. Will it come today? It might do, might come tomorrow. We're told it's going to come very soon, but I did say that last week. But I'm told it is going to be very soon. I promise.
Next it, Darren. You've promised it'll be soon. That means it'll be months.
One of these things, Darren, in this Brexit bill is a return to imperial units, so the possibility of getting rid of metric and going back to imperial units. I'm not sure how serious that is or what sort of a demand there is for it, but we're now going to a shopkeeper in Margate, unless you have something to tell me, my friend. Have you something to say about that?
Well, no, I was just going to say, so I think the rule is at the moment, under the EU rule, that you can have imperial measurements, but you have to have metric alongside it. I think under the rules the government are looking at, that you could get rid of that, so you could just have imperial, which I have to say, for me, as someone brought up under kind of metric measurements, might be a little bit confusing, because I use kilos or kilograms, for example, rather than pounds and ounces. So it's saying that in the future you could just have imperial measurements in shops if you wanted to.
If you wanted to. Who wants to? Let us know at GB News. Darren, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed, because we're now going to Margate, where we're out and about, and we like to get your views on your doorstep. And we're going to speak to a shopkeeper in Margate in Kent. Ellie Costello is there.
Hi, Eamonn and Isabel from the centre of Margate. I'm now in the Old Town. Check out these buildings. I love this part of Margate. We've got this bookshop here, lovely minty green one, the Greedy Cow. We've got a nice pink pub here. I just love this area. It's so oldie-worldy and so quaint as well. There's those little alleyways here and nice shops as well. And we're here all morning talking to local people about issues that are affecting them. And we're also going to be getting their reaction to stories that are covering the front of our newspapers. But I want to take you inside this shop over here that has really caught my eye. It's called Little Bit Shop. So let's head in. It's really brightly coloured and we'll see who is inside this shop. I love this smiley face. Here she comes. Hello, good morning. You are live on TV and on radio. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, hi, I'm Polly and this is my little shop, Little Bit, and I'm in Margate.
It is the most amazing shop. We'll have a little step inside. Look at all this colour. Hello, and who's this?
This is Dude.
Hi, Dude. Hi, Dude.
He's full of the joy.
Hello. It's good to see you. Oh, he's as happy as you are. This is wonderful. So tell us about the concept of this shop because it's so bright, it's so colourful, it's amazing.
Well, colour is my therapy.
Yeah, we're getting that.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, it was kind of inspired by Margate because Margate's very vibrant, very colourful. There's a lot of joy of the fun fair. We've got obviously Dreamland down the road, which inspires play, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. It.
Yeah, this is the vibe I'm getting. I'm absolutely loving it in here. I've got to ask you, what is your favourite product in here?
Oh,
put you on the spot.
Okay,
show me.
So this, I could basically shut my shop and just become a bum in the shop. But my friend,
I love that.
She made a bum cushion of her own because she was feeling a bit bum.
Didn't we all in lockdown?
Yeah. And we just started making them. Actually, they fly off the shelves.
Do they? I love them. Yeah, I'm very tempted by that. Very tempted by that. So, Polly, I love it here. I think this is my favourite part of the town, maybe the beach as well. But I can't help but notice it is quiet. And obviously we are in the winter. Is it a bit of a struggle to get people through the door?
It's a massive struggle. And it is just, down season in any seaside town is always going to be a bit shonky. But this particular year is really, really tough. Yeah. Especially because the last round of funding we weren't actually eligible for with gift shops, so we're going to see a lot of switching over of hands, I think, at this time.
Yeah, and you've had to diversify, haven't you?
Yeah. So I basically, in my downtime, when it is a bit quiet, I'm going to get a little van. And Dude and I are going to go off on our travels. We're going to just go throughout the country, and we just want to find joyful places around the country.
Oh.
So if anybody knows joyful places, then get in touch, because I just really want to go and find lovely community or conservation projects around the country and create a little joy directory for people.
Can I come with you?
Yes, you can.
That sounds amazing. Well, it is like joy in here, isn't it? But this isn't the only part of the surprise. We've got something else on our side, haven't we?
So the other thing that we have got here is our B&B. So this is Little Bit, and our B&B's Big Bit. I'll take you through.
Let's go through. I'm so excited for this. I've heard amazing things. So
it's a lot for Monday morning.
Yes, a lot for this time. So through the gold curtain. Here we go.
It's all very bizarre.
Oh my goodness.
It's a bit like Pat Sharp's Funhouse.
This is like being in a tub of butter or something. This is amazing. There's a bright yellow bathroom here. Oh, there's more.
There's more.
More yellow curtains.
And then it comes right into...
Wow! This is like being in like an adult soft play or something. It's just amazing.
But why should colour just be for kids? That's my thing.
Exactly. This is amazing. So this is a one-bedroom...
It's two.
Two?
Yes, so there's
Where's the other one?
rainbow room up here.
Yeah.
And then, under here, there's another one.
Stop. Should we come in? Do you want to come in? Is there space? Oh, I think we're losing signal. I think we might have to come back out. It's the joy of live TV, but I was willing to climb into bed with you there. So maybe another time.
Like a big cloud in there.
Yeah. So I need to ask you about some of the stories that are going on today.
Okay.
So we're talking in the Breakfast Show about Partygate.
Yes.
Boris Johnson should be getting that report from Sue Gray today. It won't be made public for a few more days. What do you think about this? Is this something that we should still be talking about?
You've got to hold the guy accountable. I'm sorry. There was too much loss going on at that time for people to be revelling for any birthday parties. So no, I think you've definitely got to hold him accountable. For sure.
And another big story going on today is this hike in national insurance.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be quite a difficult time for lots of families who've got energy bills going up. The cost of living is rising all the time. And now we've got the national insurance hike that was confirmed over the weekend. What do you think about that? Because that's all part of kind of trying to deal with the backlog in the NHS and the social care crisis. But it's going to be tough for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be really, really tough, especially right now as well, because there's so much flux. With jobs, so many people are losing jobs now, and actually, I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 12 months' time. With that being the case, people are already struggling, and businesses like mine, I'm self-employed, and I'm really struggling. So actually, I don't know how people who are relying on other people to employ them, who are losing those jobs, they're going to feel about that at all.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a very, very tough winter for lots of people. But you've brought us lots of joy this morning and lots of sunshine and lots of colour. So we're going to explore the rest of this B&B. We're going to get in the bed and get a bit comfortable. Back to you, Eamonn and Isabel.
Oh, Eamonn, what a joy, what a ray of sunshine.
Polychromatic.
Finding all the most cheerful and positive people in Margate and uplifting us. It's lovely.
On this Monday.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Very good.
OK, look, stay with us. We're going to be talking about the suspect linked to the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann after the break. But first of all, here's the weather.
Going to head to today, and Storm Corrie is now clearing eastwards, taking the storm force winds with it. We've just been reporting on that. Here are the details.
In the southwest, it'll be blustery and showery this lunchtime, whilst some sunny breaks are likely. There won't be as much sunshine as yesterday, and it will feel colder too.
There's also the risk of a few showers in the southeast. They shouldn't be especially heavy, though the odd sharp one is possible.
It will be blustery and showery across much of Wales. The heaviest showers are going to be towards the northwest of the county.
We move towards the Midlands, and the showers feed southeastwards. They will ease a little, so there will be fewer for the Midlands area. That being said, there will still be a few which could catch you out.
In the northeast, things should stay drier. The very strong winds we saw earlier in the day will be easing with plenty of sunshine on the cards there. Temperatures a touch down on average.
Here's Scotland. Showers will feed across Scotland. Some of those falling as sleet or snow, especially over higher ground. Southeastern parts of the country have the best chance of staying dry.
Showers and blustery winds are expected across Northern Ireland. Notice that whilst it will be chilly today, it is going to turn milder as we go through the next few days.
So, overall, cloud and persistent rain will push into the northwest to leave a damp end to the day. And that is the weather and how it's shaping up for the rest of this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk. Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Just a word to you, if you have somewhere to go today and things to do and whatever, there is the GB News app, the Real Player app, that means that you can take the television programme with you everywhere. It becomes a radio programme. You can hang it outside the shower if you want, or inside the shower, whatever suits you. But we can go anywhere with you. It's there on the app, GB News.
Once we're on, keep us on. That's the message. The time is 21 minutes past 8, and would you believe, 15 years on, we're now talking about Madeleine McCann because new evidence has emerged in the investigation into her disappearance.
Well, it appears now that the prime suspect has been confirmed as working at the holiday apartments in Portugal prior to Madeleine's disappearance. For more on this latest development, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, joins us. So, Mark, this is not a police revelation. This has come about as regards a television documentary.
Yes, the police investigation being conducted by German authorities had pointed to this individual, Christian B. We can only call him Christian B because under German privacy laws, you can only get away with the first letter of the surname. Mm-hmm. So although some people have actually published what his surname is, most people abide by that German privacy law. So Christian B, 45-year-old man, a drifter who is a handyman that worked in sort of areas, complexes and hotels around the Algarve. We have a documentary that's going out this evening on German television where they have done some pretty detailed work over recent months, delving into issues around this individual. They've managed to speak to someone who hasn't yet spoken to police or any other German prosecutors, who has confirmed to them that Christian B was working for a company that did repair work for a number of the complexes around Praia de Luz, where Madeleine McCann and their family were staying in May of 2007. And he had been working at that very complex, the Ocean Club, in the weeks and months before Madeleine disappeared. So on the face of it, it certainly seems quite compelling. And it all goes just to add yet more in the way of circumstantial evidence, but lots of it that make quite a compelling case.
We know that the Portuguese authorities really bungled the investigation in the immediate aftermath of Madeleine's disappearance. But even so, with all the documentaries and all the journalists that have swarmed around this story for over a decade now, it still amazes me that these people have come forward, this person. And
there was always the talk that they were looking for someone who maybe was a handyman and had a certain type
drifter
of car.
connection.
Yeah, and now it's been joined up, but not by police of any description.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that there are some people that just don't trust the police prosecuting authorities and don't want to speak to them. They have, through good journalistic endeavour, been able to track down an individual that didn't want to speak to the police but has spoken to them. Now, this documentary on the German channel Sat1, the producers of the programme have passed on all of their findings to the German prosecutors, and they say, the German prosecutors, that they will review this evidence, and if they need to follow it up, they will. Some other quite, it seems, compelling evidence that the documentary makers have found is delving deeper into the cell site evidence, a mobile phone that Christian B apparently had at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. The police have been able to establish that he was in the Praia de Luz area at the time that Madeleine disappeared. Well, again, the producers of this programme have had more detailed cell site analysis carried out, which shows that actually he was within a 5-minute drive of this apartment complex at the time that Madeleine disappeared. Gosh. So again, just adds to the
So people will be asking, where is this Christian B? He's in prison. Why is he in prison?
And will anything come of what we're going to see in this programme tonight?
Yeah, he's a nasty piece of work. He has been jailed for drug offences and the rape of a 72-year-old American tourist who was in Praia de Luz in 2005, 2 years before Madeleine's disappearance. He has a string of other convictions related to paedophilia as well. His former girlfriend has been speaking publicly in recent days as well about what she knew of this man, and she says that he did indeed have a fascination with young girls, in particular prepubescent girls, and that she said that he was due to come and meet her at her home in the Algarve on the night that Madeleine disappeared, due to arrive there in this camper van that he had apparently, never showed up on that evening. So, as I say, lots of bits and pieces that are coming together. Whether it's quite enough that tips it over the threshold so that prosecutors feel confident that they would be able to actually mount a successful prosecution. We don't appear to be at that stage yet, but maybe this will do.
And look, he's behind bars now. Am I right in thinking he's only serving a 7-year sentence? So if they aren't able to pin this onto him, he could theoretically be out free in a few years' time.
He will, yeah. He will be out. I mean, if they can't put charges before the court, he's going to be out. I should say that there are allegations of another rape of an Irish woman that we are expecting some charges to come through on that in the coming months. So it may be that if not Madeleine McCann's abduction and murder, they are able to at least put other charges before the courts that ensure he stays behind bars.
Okay.
But, you know, when I think, just when you say that, 15 years,
it's incredible.
There's still no peace for the McCanns, the parents themselves with this.
Well, I think we were all at Sky News at the time, weren't we? And we covered that story, you know, very significantly at the time. And it just, you know, it's just unbelievable to think that it has been 15 years.
Mark, thanks for putting us in the picture there. Interesting developments with that one. With the time at 27 minutes past 8, we're going to take a break.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's exactly 8:30 and you're very welcome to breakfast here on GB News and a look through the newspapers that you're
going to see this Monday with Tonya Buxton and Andre Walker. Very good to see both of you. Tonya, here's a story, this about turn. It looks as though there's going to be a about turn from the Health Secretary. Basically, he said, if you're in the NHS and you're not jabbed, you ain't working for us. Then they realised they had nobody working for them. They had no staff. Staff is depleted, overstretched, whatever. It looks as if he's going to have to swallow a big dose of humble pie on this one.
Well, common sense has now prevailed, hasn't it? Because, let's be honest, Omicron was a blessing. It's very, very contagious. It doesn't do the same harms that Delta did. Most of the people that are working in the NHS have worked throughout the past 2 years, have natural immunity. It's commonsensical that none of this should have happened. And people like the people that put together the Together Declaration, and we handed in signatures of 370,000 people, which was the NHS 1,000k nurses. These nurses have worked throughout. We clapped for them. We were so in awe of them going against a virus that we knew nothing about. And now we know a lot about it. They want to sack people. So this is common sense, but it can't end here, Eamonn. They've got to reinstate the care home workers as well.
Well,
and get rid of all the restrictions.
It's not that what you're saying is totally right. You believe that it's right, but he's got a problem with who does the actual job. So it's more expediency, isn't it, rather than based on medical science. He's not going along and saying, Tonya, you're absolutely right. These workers have natural immunity.
But that would take a man of honour and a man that understood common sense and understood how a virus works to do that. No, he's not going to say that. He's going to say, I'm doing it because I can't do that staff. But the reality is, it is the commonsensical right thing to do.
I'm just surprised in the first place that that they said, look, it's no jab, no work, because they just didn't have the staff.
No.
And do you know something? My mother and father's GP, who's, I think, mid-40s, the minute this pandemic broke out, he decided to self-isolate. Now, I have to say, that feels to me like a dereliction of duty. And I've seen nurses and doctors in hospitals absolutely work their socks off in difficult situations. I mean, remember, when 2/3 of your ward die in front of you of coronavirus, that's an incredibly traumatic thing. To go back into work the next day, these people deserve a medal. And the idea that you're going to boot them out, I think, is wholly outrageous. And if it is expediency, then at least it's expediency, and we're just going to move on from this position. But I'll tell you something. My mother was in hospital with lung cancer during the pandemic, and people weren't vaccinated just because there wasn't time to do it. I have to say, when you've got somebody with a serious condition, you want a nurse there. The idea that they'd be sat at home over some principle, I think, is
wrong. OK, well, we're waiting an announcement on that today, Tonya. In the Metro, it's front page of the Metro, the Prime Minister facing a tax mutiny as MPs' furies directed at him and the Chancellor over the national insurance increase. It looks as though it's going to go ahead in April, and it looks as though it's very much driven by the Chancellor as opposed to the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this before. It's this 1.25% increase, and it's supposed to be to fund social care. I've already made the point that I think that whilst we're tipping money down the toilet on things like furloughs and the failure to investigate fraud during the furlough scheme, which was $5 billion, you know, we shouldn't be doing this. But what the Metro, I think, is specifically interested in is the way that Conservative MPs themselves are extremely unhappy. You know, we're going into local elections in May, which are going to be an absolute disaster. We're being told, by the way, that the Conservatives may lose Wandsworth. Even John Major managed to retain Wandsworth. So it's some of those big totemic councils that are going to be in real trouble. And Conservative MPs have said things like, we are supposed to be tax cutters, which I don't think is an unreasonable comment.
Well, if he stands losing red wall constituencies because of this, why wouldn't he then do the expedient thing, the way the Health Secretary is saying, right, let's forget these jabs for NHS workers? Why isn't he saying, let's forget this?
Well, and I don't understand why he's not, but let's just be clear on the red wall. You know, for these people to have jumped to vote Conservative was a big thing. They did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, they wanted their views reflected on Brexit. And number two, they wanted investment in infrastructure. And the reality is that a lot of what's gone on has prevented that investment in infrastructure. And that is going to be potentially a real problem.
Now, listen, 2 years to the day since Brexit, and Boris Johnson's done a big double-page spread in the Mail today about this Brexit bill. Now, I've read this, and all I can see is it's going to be easier to get imperial units back from metric
I can't really see what else. I mean, you know, I'm looking for the detail in this Brexit bill. Can you see it?
Well, first of all, a pint of champagne is a glorious thing. but by the way, that's because it's a couple of glasses, not because I drink it as a pint. But as if the viewers are going to believe that. But look, I think part of the problem is Brexit is not a thing in of itself. It's an ability to do something. Right? There's a trade-off. When you pool sovereignty, then the European Union makes all your laws, but obviously it might have some advantages in terms of trade. We've got to start getting rid of some of these regulations that the European Union continually brought in over years. There's not much evidence of it. I mean, I think that it would be so easy to be a Conservative government right now. What you've got to do is get the taxes down, get the infrastructure in the north of England, and use Brexit to start bonfiring regulations. But, Eamonn, you're right. That isn't happening.
OK.
So basically what you're saying is just be Conservative.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that amazing?
Come back to being Conservatives, that's it.
A Conservative Prime Minister who's a Conservative, what will they think of next?
Tanya, you've thought about Canada with these vaccine mandates, and it's a story we've been covering this morning. So the Prime Minister there, he's had to flee Ottawa. A truck convoy is blocked in Ottawa. We have the pictures there. You can see that's the story there. This is the Telegraph, page 17, and this is actually what happened.
Over 50,000 of these huge trucks have descended, and because the government have overreached, they're overreaching their powers of control. They're pushing people to do things they don't want to do. They are mandating people's civil liberties, and they've had enough. And so the truckers have stood up. And you know, we're one of the only channels showing this, because the mainstream media seem to have ignored it. This is the first time I've seen it in the paper, which is wonderful. And, you know, you have to take on what the people want. The governors are there in the democratic world to do as the people want, and the people have spoken. They do know what vaccine mandates.
I think a lot of this is incredibly dangerous. There's that thing we always used to talk about, the social contract, which is this idea that your government has to act in your interests, has to reflect the will of the people. This idea of constantly beating people down, locking them up, placing you under house arrest for being near somebody who fell ill, which was happening at one point, this is a way that will sow social division and potentially lead to things like violence. I think a lot of what we saw with the Black Lives Matter riots, I'm not talking about the legitimate protests, but the riots were young people having been locked up for 6 months, 8 months, a year.
Andre, you get a load of people who will absolutely agree with what you're saying there, and you get a load of people saying, but that's what the government are doing. They are protecting us. We are looking to them to do the right thing.
And that would be a reasonable point. The problem is you cannot continue with such a large number of people who are disenfranchised. That is a recipe for significant social problems. Even if some of the policies you're putting forward are reasonable or fair, the fact that you've got a huge percentage of the population angry about it is dangerous in of itself.
It is, and the government spent 400 million on fear factoring people, so that's why people are so frightened at the moment. You know, if you really took it and did it normally, then it's much more dangerous to get into a car than it is to be young and come near COVID.
Although
We've got to get things in proportion. We have to get things into proportion, and we have to decide what we want to do personally. We don't live in a totalitarian world. We're supposed to live in democracy. You know, I'm the type of person who likes to get into ice baths and ski down mountains. Well, you might not want to do that, but that's my choice.
No, I had my feet in the ice water over the weekend. I'm in up to the ankles, shins now. And we're going to talk about health and fitness now as well, because, Andre, you've chosen a story in the Mail. This is page 11 in the Mail. And this is a certain diet, an NHS diet, a soup and shake diet. And why Mrs. Buxton, I just want to say about her, of course, if you follow her on Instagram, you will see her fitness regime. And indeed, you used to... what do you do with weights?
Bodybuilder. I was Miss South East Britain, 1997.
Yeah, amazing. And I know you do a lot to maintain your frame, as it were. And one of the things she does is she takes these horrendous ice baths. Now, I've had a bit of inflammation because of my sciatic nerve here, and I've been recommended for circulation to do the ice bath. Honestly, I've got into the ankles. That's
Eamonn, I'm telling you, if you do it, you will... the reason I get into it is because, like you, I have pain. I wake up in the morning, I have hip pain. like a little old lady. It's annoying. So I get into that ice bath. Yes, it takes a lot of mental courage to get into it, but I get out and I feel fantastic. I feel 21. I feel there's no aches, there's no pains. It's wonderful.
I would probably just die.
You wouldn't.
That's
you
what
wouldn't.
happened. I would probably have a heart attack and be gone. But Andre, so this is a soup and shake diet as recommended by the NHS.
Well, first of all, how middle-aged do we sound at the moment? But anyway, Tom, get me ice bath. Me hips have gone. Oh, it's terrible. But anyway, look, I appreciate that some people are going to view this as hypocritical for me to say, but the NHS is going to start prescribing shakes and soup. You get it for 3 months. If you don't pay prescription charges, then you will get it for free, and it's for people who are overweight. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I do not think that this is a good spend of taxpayers' money. I think
you don't?
No. Because realistically, look, I'm overweight myself, and you've had a couple of dinners too, over the years.
Yeah, but look at all the problems that will lead to, which the NHS has to deal with.
But if somebody is unwilling to eat sensibly, it shouldn't be for the government to pay for their soup and shakes. It should be used to pay for yourself. I think there's got to be more individual responsibility. Plus, the other thing is,
the problem.
Can I tell you, my cousin used to spend her life on diets and then used to go to the chippy on the way home from school. These soup and shakes will not work if you're still eating fish and chips.
I agree with you. That, the whole thing is that type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle diabetes. It's something that you do to yourself. And there's not enough information for people. We get so much misinformation about what is the right thing to do. I think the soup and shakes are a Band-Aid fix. What should be happening is that we should have programmes that show people free or workshops that people can go into and learn to cook from scratch and cook well from scratch and exercise. There should be free gym memberships. This should have all gone on during the 2 years that have just passed. People should have learned to cook for themselves through classes and gym membership, and we would be coming out of this terrible 2 years that we've just had, fitter, healthier people.
You're so right. The priority of being able to cook for yourself and doing things that are not processed, that are not portion controlled or whatever, I think that should be just mandatory in every school.
I agree.
And we should all have, instead of having driving tests or whatever, we should have some sort of cooking test or ability to be able to
that would save billions.
And the other thing that, and I don't want to sound like a killjoy, when you realise just how bad granulated sugar is and how much processed foods have granulated sugar in them, it's so dangerous.
But Andre, the power that the food lobby have, I mean, I'm fed up hearing it's my fault, it's partly my fault, it's partly your fault, it's partly your fault, but basically we are being fed poison. And the government does nothing about it because of the food lobby.
This is the thing that makes me shout so much. I mean, you see the hidden sugars and the hidden preservatives and the salts and the things that are in foods. The government should be stepping in and saying, no, this is poison. We're not going to allow you to sell poison. You can only sell something if it's nutritionally beneficial to you. And I like chocolate, I like cakes, but there you know where they are.
But actually, here's the thing that I think is really difficult about this. We talk about chocolates and cakes and whatever. Quite often, you could have a microwave meal that is absolutely rammed full of all sorts of E numbers, all sugars. And actually, if you're giving your kid, I don't know, say a lasagna that's out of a microwave, you legitimately you should be able to assume that that's not made with a ton of sugar.
No, but really what needs to be done is that people need to be given basic tools. Nobody gets cookery lessons anymore at school. They can't. Most people can't cook. And so this is the problem. And it's all very well
Most people now eat out. You know,
and takeaways are a nightmare.
Takeaways are a nightmare, and the salt in that. But you're absolutely right. If you go and you buy a healthy option meal or whatever, a microwave meal, it's not unreasonable to assume, well, that is not bad for me. That's okay. Right. And yet it's poison, whatever. Guys, really enjoyed your conversation today. Thank you both very much indeed. We've got to leave it there. Tanya Buxton and Andre Walker. Let's go to Isabel for an update on one of the stories we were talking about, which is the scrap requirements on the jabs policy for the NHS.
That's right, Eamonn. We're expecting an update on this story today. The Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, we're told, is preparing to abolish mandatory COVID jabs for NHS staff and social workers. Let's bring in our national reporter, Paul Hawkins. He's at Charing Cross Hospital for us this morning. Good to see you, Paul. Look, this was highly controversial, wasn't it? Not least because of concerns about freedom, but also the impact that it would have on staff shortages. But it's the data that really is driving this decision by the Health Secretary.
Yeah, that is what the government will say. Campaigners will say it's their pressure, Isabel, that their campaign, the 100k campaign that's been going on now for a number of months, protests seen across the UK by around about 100, well, initially it was 100,000 NHS staff that were unvaccinated. That's now come down to around about 77,000 staff, which is about 5% of the NHS frontline staff. They would say that their pressure has forced the government into this U-turn, but of course Sajid Javid is going to say that the data suggests that now there could be a change in policy because, as he told the Health and Social Care Committee last week, Omicron now the dominant variant instead of Delta, so they need to revise this policy on mandatory vaccinations for NHS frontline staff. We've seen a significant change in the government's language on this. Initially, no U-turn. NHS staff, it's their duty to get vaccinated. That's what the Health Secretary has been saying, but now he shifted to a slightly different position, and we are expecting either today or tomorrow for an announcement to be made that those 77,000 unvaccinated staff will not have to leave their jobs, will not have to be redeployed to other parts of the NHS come April. A significant change in policy from the government and, frankly, a big U-turn.
A big U-turn, but will be broadly welcomed, I'm sure. Perversely, or strangely, I should say, it might actually mean that more of those staff who were resistant to getting a vaccine because it was being forced on them might actually go ahead and get one now.
Yeah, potentially, yeah, and of course there will be some anger from those that have left their jobs, that have decided to leave the NHS because they didn't want to get the vaccination. Now it turns out they actually could have had it, so there will be repercussions to this decision. But I'm going to be speaking to a midwife later this morning, actually, who has been campaigning for this change in government policy for a long time. She's really happy. She said it was absolute madness. I was speaking to her just now. She said it was absolute madness that that this policy was put into place in the first place, especially given the big labour shortages that there were and the gaps that there would have been in frontline staffing on the National Health Service.
OK, Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Leave it there. Now, as many of us eagerly head back to the workplace, for others, just the thought of it might be, I use this term as something you may identify with, overwhelming. Not just that, there are lots of things, I mean, household tasks, you know, things you've got to do. Sometimes I can't work out if I'm just getting lazier as I get older or I'm being overwhelmed.
Yeah, probably a combo of the two.
Combo. But this whole thing that, you know, if you have a task to do, you know, say it's you know, just clear out your wardrobes, whatever it is, and you think, I just can't do it, I can't face that, I can't face that. Are you shirking it or are you overwhelmed?
I have a theory about that. I have a theory that the anticipation is actually worse than the reality, and I think that's a lot of what overwhelm is about.
It's like Sunday nights going into work on a Monday. Not that I had a spring in my step thinking about coming in.
Couldn't wait to see me. Let's bring in the specialist, the expert, who knows all the techniques to get our mindset in the right place to cope with overwhelm. That is, of course, Janie Holiday. Good morning to you.
Janie,
lovely to see you.
Are we just getting lazy? Are we shirkers or are we genuinely overwhelmed?
Good morning. Well, I think you've just been discussing it perfectly. It can be a combination of all of those things. Let's just start with some basics. That feeling of overwhelm is a feeling, and that usually stems from the thoughts that we are having, what we are telling ourselves, and really we need to push back on ourselves and ask these key questions. Am I feeling overwhelmed because of the things that I have to do? Am I feeling overwhelmed because of the things that I'm telling myself I have to do? Or am I feeling overwhelmed because of the way I'm approaching what I need to do or what I'm dealing with? A lot of people are at full capacity right now. It's with that buckets full, right? We're living our lives with those buckets full, and often it's one thing that can tip us over. So we have to just push back on ourselves, because most overwhelm is actually self-created or self-tolerated. It's that great saying, whatever you don't change, you are choosing. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, take a big, deep breath and start to break it all down. One of the habits people have is juggling everything in their heads. And if you can write it down and put things in different boxes and compartmentalize, that will really start to lower it.
Interesting. You know, Eamonn said to me the other day, "Oh, you're a real magnet for negativity." That I only, yeah, you did. I only hear the negative, so we could have a lovely post-show meeting, and there'll be one comment, and that's all I hear. And that definitely contributes, surely, doesn't it, to this whole idea of overwhelm? And I think the question for me, and for people who suffer from that, is how do you change a negative mindset? I honestly don't think I'm ever going to be able to change the way I process information. I just don't.
Come and work with me for a couple of years, Isabel, and I'll sort you out, no problem. Yeah, and look, it's default habit, isn't it, about focusing on the things that we haven't done rather than what we have done. And that's a huge part of overwhelm. Most people look at their week ahead of what they think they need to do, and it seems like one monumental mountain. Whereas when we actually start to focus on what we have done rather than what we haven't, that really, really helps. And a lot of people are just doing too much. We're such a busy generation. We compare ourselves so much. And we've really got to start listening. Like, if you can list down what you are telling yourself, most people are trying to be an A-grade student in all areas of your life, and it's just not achievable. So for some people, it's about focusing on one thing each day or each week that will really help you feel that you are accomplishing things. And it is reminding yourself that what you tell yourself is not fact. It's just a load of rubbish that stems from unhelpful core beliefs, and you do have the power to change all of those. So as I said, listing everything down and answering yourself back and giving yourself permission to make the changes that you need to make, or to indeed think about things better, is literally night and day.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've got the phrase right. You said the things we don't change, we have to accept, or something.
Incidentally, you've just sorted her out there with that answer.
Eamonn was wagging his finger at me. He was going, you can't be an A-grade student at everything.
Student, which is what you've been throughout your life,
Trying
isn't
to
it?
be. But what was the phrase you said there, Janie, which was, what you don't change, you have to accept?
Whatever you don't change, you are choosing. So a lot of us that are leading stressful lives, busy lives, giving ourselves a hard time, it's actually a choice, because what we think about and what we feel is actually a choice. So if you keep reminding yourself that whatever you don't change, you are choosing, it can actually be a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow. I've had to swallow it myself, but it actually means that you can change things about yourself. No one says you have to be overwhelmed. No one says you have to be busy. But it's about listening to what's driving you to do that. And of course, sometimes it's just habit. You get into the habit. And for some people, it's, like I said earlier, tipping you over the edge, whether it be the pandemic or homeschooling. So whenever you are feeling like that, it's just keep breaking it down, and reminding yourselves that you can tell yourselves more positive things.
Janie, we've talked about this before, but there's no doubt now in my mind the biggest evil, it may be a strength at times, the biggest evil is social media and connectivity. And I'll tell you from my point of view, I have no escape now whatsoever. It used to be you only chose who visited your house or who you would bump into in the street, whether you would speak to them or not. Now I am contactable by WhatsApp, by Zoom, by Skype, by text, by email, by LinkedIn, by Instagram. I genuinely am. I can spend days answering on each one of these immediate people, people who are friends, people who are work colleagues, people who I used to know and haven't been in touch with for years, people I went to school with. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And people who, you were not friendly with are now your social media friends. And so it's not that just you're making a phone call to your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters or whatever, but Mrs. Miggins, who lives in Chester or whatever, who's now a friend on social media. So I have dug a big hole for myself and I am too readily available. And it's difficult because people never get in touch with you just to say, hello, how are you? They get in touch and say, hello, how are you? I've got this terrible story and you're the only person in the world that can help me with this. And even if you only do 100th of what you're asked to do, it's amazingly difficult. Do you have an answer? Do you have a solution, dear Janie?
Oh, you know what? I mean, I do an exercise with my clients called Throwback, which is where you take yourself back to 15 years. The iPhone was launched in 2007. And when you really start to break down how different we lived our lives, morning, noon, night, work boundaries, everything, it is staggering the difference. I'm not sure I have the complete solution, but I think what you have to do is you have to create boundaries. You have to work out when you say that's enough, but you also have to communicate to other people how you are feeling and what you would like to change. So there are ways that you can lower that overwhelm and you can take back some command of your boundaries, of your choices. But we are all, I think, going slightly mad as a generation. I came off social media for a few months last year. I just couldn't cope anymore. And now I'm on it and I'm building my own rules. You guys are obviously, TV presenters and there's lots going on, but you have to communicate to others. If you say, listen, this weekend, I'm not going to be on my social media feed. See you on Monday. People will learn that that is what you are going to do. And it's all about communication and really acknowledging just how different we are living and the impact that has on us.
Feeling overwhelmed again.
But you and I are good examples that I deliberately didn't contact you yesterday because I wanted to
Until the evening. You did send me a voice note in the evening. I haven't contacted you all weekend. It was lovely to hear from you. But this makes me worry about my kids, and we should do a whole separate segment about how we can bring up our children in a really normal way where we're actually connected but without all the negativity. I don't know. It stresses me out.
It's about if you're feeling overwhelmed, Isabel, just again, I said at the beginning, just write down what it is, ask yourself what you can do, put it in a box and deal with it later, and that will lower it as well.
Yeah.
But I take your point, Janie, about laying out rules and saying, you're not going to be available. But when you're not available, say, for instance, we work these strange hours, and if you were to take a kip in the afternoon, say from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the world goes mad with, where are you? What's happened to you? Because you go to sleep doesn't mean that the rest of the world goes to sleep. So it still is tough, isn't it?
It's a funny old world we all live in.
It's a funny
world. Whatever your job is. We're all just constantly contactable. Janie, thank you for bringing some sense and some...
Set rules, set boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get in touch with me tonight...
Who's going to break first? Let's set a challenge.
In touch. I just mind it's a bit when it's 1:30 in the morning.
I actually had a WhatsApp at 1:30 in the morning from you to wake up to this morning, so you're losing this.
That's a whole other story. We're going to take a break. Back with the news, top of the hour after this. Going to head to today, and Storm Corrie is now clearing eastwards, taking the storm force winds with it. We've just been reporting on that. Here are the details.
In the southwest, it'll be blustery and showery this lunchtime, whilst some sunny breaks are likely. There won't be as much sunshine as yesterday, and it will feel colder too.
There's also the risk of a few showers in the southeast. They shouldn't be especially heavy, though the odd sharp one is possible.
It will be blustery and showery across much of Wales. The heaviest showers are going to be towards the northwest of the county.
We move towards the Midlands, and the showers feed southeastwards. They will ease a little, so there will be fewer for the Midlands area. That being said, there will still be a few which could catch you out.
In the northeast, things should stay drier. The very strong winds we saw earlier in the day will be easing with plenty of sunshine on the cards there. Temperatures a touch down on average.
Here's Scotland. Showers will feed across Scotland. Some of those falling as sleet or snow, especially over higher ground. Southeastern parts of the country have the best chance of staying dry.
Showers and blustery winds are expected across Northern Ireland. Notice that whilst it will be chilly today, it is going to turn milder as we go through the next few days.
So, overall, cloud and persistent rain will push into the northwest to leave a damp end to the day. And that is the weather and how it's shaping up for the rest of this Monday. Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
And Dan Wootton, join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Two years to the day since the UK left the EU, the government launches a new Brexit freedoms bill. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock, Monday, January 31st.
You're watching Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel coming up this morning.
The Prime Minister vows to go faster on Brexit freedoms, pledging to ditch EU laws, saying the move will cut £1 billion worth of red tape for British business.
The government U-turns on mandatory COVID jabs for NHS and social care workers after the Omicron variant is found to be milder than first feared.
OK, here's our lead story this hour. A Brexit freedoms bill to ditch EU laws will be unveiled by the Prime Minister. He believes this move will cut away £1 billion worth of what he describes as red tape. For more, let's go to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, on this to see if he can give us a clearer picture as to what's involved. Darren.
Well, good morning, Eamonn. Yes, it is 2 years since the UK left the European Union, since Brexit Day, and there's been criticism of the government that they've not really taken advantage of that in terms of trying to get rid of some of the rules and regulations that here in Westminster they would like to see change. Yes, there have been tweaks. For example, last year HGV drivers were able to work more during that crisis when there were supply issue shortages. Also talk that companies, shops, businesses in future will no longer have to provide metric alongside imperial measurements. They view like the old-fashioned imperial pounds and ounces, that you can just do that rather than having to provide kilograms as well. But at the same time, the governor also saying it's not just little things like that this involves big issues around red tape that costs businesses up to £1 billion a year and can help create jobs. Problem with that, though, of course, is governments always promise to cut red tape, don't they? There's no actual evidence to get to this figure of £1 billion, and it has caused a bit of a stink with the devolved governments, because those decisions will be made here in Westminster rather than in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, as the politicians there would like. So the government essentially trying to get on top of this initiative, come out with some interesting ideas on it, though one might suggest the glaring example of where significant changes could be made on removing VAT from fuel at a time of rising fuel prices. Well, the government suggesting that they're going to stick by that EU regulation and they're not going to get rid of VAT on fuel. Just want to note as well this morning, Eamonn, a bit of breaking news in the last hour or so, and it involves Lord David Frost, of course, the former Brexit secretary in all of this. There was lots of speculation that he might decide to join the government inside Number 10 again to help be maybe the Prime Minister's chief of staff. He says that he can't because of government policy, particularly on this issue of the national insurance rise and tax increases. He says that he doesn't agree with that decision, and so he could not help implement it. So Lord Frost essentially this morning ruling himself out on a return to government. Quite a punchy few tweets and a significant move. Again, having a go at the government over those tax rises.
Look, you mentioned that national insurance hike, and there was certainly a lot of rumours last week that the Prime Minister was considering a U-turn on it. But over the weekend, he's come out shoulder to shoulder with his Chancellor, doing a joint article in one of the Sunday broadsheets, explaining exactly why he feels that we need to press ahead with it.
Yeah, this is the 1.25 point hike in national insurance. Expected in April, it's going to cost the average household around 500 quids. For many more households, it'll be a lot more, into the thousands of pounds, and it's going to cost businesses too. You're right in suggesting that many Conservative MPs, not just Lord Frost and others, are pretty unhappy about this. They feel, first of all, it breaks a manifesto commitment not to raise national insurance, but also that it's coming at the worst possible time as inflation hits 5-6% and energy prices rise as well, that many families simply won't be able to afford it, Isabel, during this cost of living crisis. But interestingly, the Prime Minister, he appeared to waver a bit last week, guaranteeing that this would go ahead. Well, yesterday he did do that joint publication with the Chancellor in the Sunday Times, insisting it would go ahead. Their argument is that they need this money, not just for the National Health Service over the next couple of years to try and get rid of that backlog that's built up during the pandemic, but also as a long-term measure to sort out social care. But I would sense, given the strength of feeling inside the Conservative Party and the still somewhat precarious position the Prime Minister finds himself in, don't be surprised if there's further pressure in the weeks and months to come, coming up to April, for the government to change their mind on this particular issue.
Aaron, I think we've gone a whole two-way without even mentioning Sue Gray. We'll see how long that lasts. That might be popping up a little bit later on this week. Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darren. He does an interesting range of scarves, doesn't he?
He does. They're very Paddington Bear-esque. I like them.
Good day for one anyway. Headlines are these with the time at 9:05. The Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood is still in custody after being arrested on suspicion of rape and assault.
Police say they were made aware of images and videos posted on social media by a woman reporting incidents of physical violence. Manchester United has suspended the player, announcing he won't train or play for the Premier League club until further notice.
Hundreds of hospital porters, cleaners and catering staff have started a 2-week strike over pay. The union Unite says some members employed by Serco at St Bart's, the Royal London and Whipps Cross are paid up to 15% less than those employed directly by the NHS.
More passengers could soon receive financial compensation for delayed domestic flights. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, has announced plans to reduce the payout threshold from a 3-hour delay to just 1.
Spotify is set to add advisory warnings to podcasts that discuss COVID-19, redirecting users to coronavirus facts. It follows criticism over its hosting of the vaccine skeptic Joe Rogan and his podcast. Neil Young and Joni Mitchell have pulled their music from the platform, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have also raised concerns.
The charity Gamble Aware says up to 1 million women are at risk of problem gambling. Its research suggests that 2 out of 5 don't seek the help they need due to the stigma, and many increase gambling during the winter months.
Today is a busy day on the football front. It is transfer deadline day, and we think it's going to be hectic. Here's Aidan McGee with what is happening already so far today.
Yeah, fast out of the blocks this morning. A real heartwarming story, I would say, as well. You mentioned just off air just then. Christian Eriksen signing for Brentford. We all remember that situation last summer, don't we? We were watching the Euros. It was Denmark against Hungary, I think it was. And suddenly the game comes to a halt because Christian Eriksen has collapsed somewhere in the pitch out of camera shot. Quite quickly we see it's a serious situation. There's a wall of players, Denmark players, led by Simon Kjær and the goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel of Leicester, of course, the captain. His girlfriend was on the scene as well. She's by the touchline. We all didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, we thought it was a possibility the worst might happen. We really did. We certainly didn't think that within 7-8 months he'd be back playing in the Premier League. The issue was that he was fitted with a defibrillator, and that prohibits him from continuing his career in Italy. The rules are slightly different there. So Denmark, Brentford, who have a strong connection with Denmark. Obviously, their manager is Thomas Frank. They have a lot of people in their backroom staff who have connections in Copenhagen. They've swooped to sign, or swooped is the word we only hear on deadline day, isn't it? They've swooped to sign Christian Eriksen. They brought him in. They think it's a low risk signing. but he's there to the end of the season. He's been given quotes in the season.
The big thing would have been to get insurance for him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, a work permit's an issue now as well. Now we're outside of the EU, but they think they can done that. I should say this deal is subject to international clearance, but he's 29 years old. 2 years ago, this was one of the best players in the world. There's no question about that. We kind of lose sight of when they go to Italy.
Yeah.
In fact, 2 years ago he went to Serie A. We kind of outside the Premier League bubble, we lose track of what they're doing. But he was doing well for Inter. He was going to do well for Denmark. They, of course, got to the semi-finals without him. Who knows what they could have done with him in the side? But a great coup for Brentford, and it suits him coming back to London, an area he knows well.
Yeah, we'll wish him very well after
Absolutely.
everything he's been through. Should we talk about Everton? They've
Yes.
appointed Frank Lampard on transfer deadline days of all days. What a start.
I've never known a situation like this. I've covered 22 deadline days in a row in my previous job. I never knew a situation where a manager was appointed so close to deadline day. Now, the situation is that they need radical surgery on their team. They're in a position they're in for a reason. They brought Frank Lampard in for a reason. He was in London yesterday with Bill Kenwright, who's a theatre impresario, as well as being the Everton chairman. He was crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the contract to get the deal done. But it looks as if they're trying to get some players in now. Donny van der Beek from Manchester United, 4 starts for United since September 2020, nowhere near enough, 23 off the bench, 2 goals. The Dutch international, really impressive player prior to joining Manchester United, hasn't worked for him there. As a coach, Frank Lampard will look at him, as every coach does, Isabel, and they'll say, I can get more out of this player. Similar to some of the other players he's looking to bring in as well, because they need some serious help in that side there. I mean, a big game against Brentford next week when we expect Christian Eriksen, incidentally, to make his debut. They've got Newcastle the week after that. Big relegation battle. Frank Lampard has it all to do. There's no question about that. And he's operating without a director of football, which makes signing players even more difficult.
Newcastle have found it difficult to sign players, but you think they've got one?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, let's put it in context. This time last year, we saw only £70 million was spent in this window. Yes, we're in the midst of a pandemic. Newcastle have entered the market for the first time under their super-rich Saudi owners. They've signed Bruno Guimaraes yesterday from Lyon, 24 years old, 3 caps for Brazil. He's completing a medical in Brazil in the next one. No, it's actually already done. So, yeah, that's a big signing for them. He's been compared to Kevin De Bruyne. We've heard that a few times with players coming here. They get compared with players. We won't actually know until they get on the pitch. But yeah, they're also after Matt Targett, apparently, at Aston Villa, fullback. They've already brought in Kieran Trippier. They've also brought in Chris Wood from Burnley for £25 million. They're spending today, especially if they get Dan Burn from Brighton for £13 million, a former Newcastle Academy player. Their spending alone could go well over £100 million, which would actually supersede the 70 spent by all clubs last season, or this time last season. 195 been spent so far, 11 o'clock deadline time.
Liverpool spending money as well. Luis Diaz, 1 goal every 3 matches for Porto. He's a Colombian international. So it is transfer deadline day.
Yes.
As you said, it's going to be very, very busy.
But we can't talk about sport without mentioning Rafa Nadal.
I mean, goodness me, how can we not?
Unbelievable men's final yesterday. And do you know what? I can't think of anyone who deserves the title of being the best, have the most Grand Slams in all time.
Novak Djokovic would disagree with you, but anyway.
I came in yesterday into this studio with Deanna Davidson. I was calling last rites on Rafa Nadal's Australian Open campaign. He was 2 sets to love down. It was going with serve early in the third. I watched Rafa Nadal in 2003 on the grass at Wimbledon take his first strokes in Grand Slam tennis. I didn't know I was going to be in the presence of greatness. Therefore, I should have known yesterday not to write him off, because he came back from 2 sets to love down to win in 5 sets. It was an extraordinary achievement, and he hasn't won that tournament since 2009 against Roger Federer when he made the great Swiss try that time. So it's not a tournament he's used to winning. I think he'll win the French and go to 22. I think by the time Djokovic takes his place on a court, which could be Wimbledon in start of June.
He's 2 behind.
He's 2 behind. Yeah, exactly. Federer's not going to play. Not going to win a Slam again. I don't think. I think he's 40 years old. The time has passed. Murray's not really going to compete anymore. It's dependent on people like Dominic Thiem, who've only got 1 Grand Slam. Medvedev. I mean, what a disappointment for him yesterday. I mean, 2 sets up. He was arguing with the crowd all the way through the tournament. He wasn't really. He's become persona non grata down in Australia now, possibly even more popular than Djokovic down there at the minute. So, arguing with the crowd, he's 25 years old. He went into it as the US Open champion. He disposed of Djokovic in 3 sets last September. He really has to get his act together if he's going to be a serial winner, like the guys we're talking about, Djokovic, Federer and Nadal, of course.
Yeah, they're just peerless, aren't they?
Just a word on Ashley Barty. Made history at the weekend. She became the first Australian woman to win the year's first Grand Slam in 44 years.
Male or female?
male or female. That's amazing, isn't
Yeah.
it? Aidan, appreciate it. Thanks very much
guys.
indeed. Thank you. So busy day, transfer deadline day.
We're going to go to the
close?
seaside.
11 o'clock. 11 o'clock
But there'll be
tonight.
deals to be done. Can be done after that. You may even see, on occasion, some going into tomorrow. It depends what the clubs can blag.
Okay.
There's deals
I can say the
bagging
fax
on.
machine's not working, that kind of stuff.
Well, let's see how communications are going with Margate. Ellie Costello's been out and about for us, talking to people in the community there. Oh, it's blowing a hoolie. Who have you been speaking to more recently, Ellie?
Hi, Eamonn and Isabel. Yes, we've finally made it down to the seaside. I feel like I'm going to get blown away. I'm told that the sea behind us is usually flat as a pancake, but over my left shoulder here, you can see there's actually kite surfers out today. They usually come out twice a year, so you can just tell how windy it is today. I'm in Margate today, talking to local people about issues that matter to them. And if you Google the top 10 things to do in Margate, this comes up. This is called the Bus Cafe. It's apparently where you can get the best breakfast in Margate, so obviously I had to come. Let's go say hello and see if there's anyone in. Hello. Hello, you are live on TV and on radio. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jodie. I'm one of the owners of the Bus Cafe.
Ah, thank you very much, Jodie. Can we come in?
Yeah, sure. You'd like to follow me upstairs?
Hi, everyone. You're live on TV and radio. Give us a little wave. That's Simon down there. Busy.
Just what happens. Just what happens when the signals.
little bit quick.
She's back in
Oh,
again.
oh,
Hiccup.
we can hear her.
Is she back there?
Back of the bus. This is where the cool kids sit, back here. So this is such an amazing concept. I've never seen anything like it before. Look at this view, this amazing view of
really
Margate
happy.
Beach. So what's the concept behind this business?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a long time coming. A few years ago, when we first moved to Margate, we met some neighbours, and it turned out that they also wanted to open a cafe. That was the whole premise.
Wow, so what have we got here?
These are our hangovers. So
These are hangovers.
They're our version of the British breakfast.
Great, so what have we got here then? Talk us through this breakfast.
We've got homemade potato rosti.
Yeah, which is this, yeah.
Refried beans, a mumbled egg, which is Jodie's family recipe, some tamari mushrooms, crisp bacon, and local sausages.
This looks absolutely amazing, and it is famous. Everyone that I've been talking to in Margate says I have to come here and have the hangover, so I think I need to have a taste test.
Yeah.
Can you hold this for a second?
Absolutely.
I'm going to try this now. So what do you think, the rosti? Do you think that's the way
Let's
to go?
go for the rosti and a bit of bacon.
Let's go for it. There we go. Mmm.
Correct answer.
That is absolutely amazing.
Good.
Guys, unreal. Whilst we're here, whilst we're on our breakfast, I want to show you the front of this newspaper. This is your local paper. And the big story today is the cost of the pandemic lockdown. What was it like for you guys over lockdown here?
It was. I mean, it was bleak. To be fair, it was pretty bleak. We had no idea really what was going to happen. We were really worried for our business at the time as well.
The whole town was pretty much shut down.
Yeah,
wasn't it? So-
exactly. Everything was shut. Everything. And then halfway through, I think, the pandemic, Boris Johnson had the bright idea of allowing people to go out and wander around. And so we had thousands of people came to Margate and descended upon this town. Bearing in mind there wasn't a shop open, there was no services, no toilets were open, so
It felt pretty unplanned.
people were just coming here, and then the rest of sadly, our lovely little town ended up being like a giant
toilet.
Oh no! So yeah, that was like, thank you very much, government, for those for that little
Wise wisdom.
But now we're good, we're looking bright. I mean, you are one of the top things to do in Margate. Everyone speaks so highly about you, and I can highly recommend the breakfast now. So the future is bright.
Wonderful.
Certainly is. Yeah. No, we're really lucky. Like it's becoming a little bit more popular here again. Everyone's feeling a little bit more confident to come out, and even in the winter, like people are still like coming here to support local businesses, which is really integral.
Which is what matters, and that's definitely the thing that strikes me here. Everyone is so friendly, but there is that emphasis now on small business and supporting local. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for having us. We're going to tuck into this breakfast now, but Jodie and Simon, it's fantastic to be here. Eamonn and Isabel, I hope you've enjoyed coming round Margate with me today. I'm going to leave you with this spectacular view from the top of the Bus Cafe. Look at those waves.
We do like to be beside the seaside, Ellie.
I want to go. I really do.
We do.
I've not been to Margate.
There's a great amusement park at Margate.
It looks fabulous.
But you see Ellie on board that bus, that catering bus there. That's how all the big film stars and whatever eat. They're making films on location. They eat in buses like that, and everybody, and the food is always really, really good when it's location catering. Like that. Well, I mean, I suppose if you're a really big star, you'd have your own caravan, probably. But a lot of them go into the buses.
It looks very nice too.
Yeah.
Staying with that theme, sort of showbizy theme, we're going to be talking about what's going on with Adele after the breaks. Is her love life on the rocks? Maybe more cancellations from her. I know who'll know. The showbiz editor of The Sun, that is Hannah Hope. She'll be here in a minute.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview, channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Showbiz News with Hannah Hope. Hannah, Adele, and we're not talking about concert cancellations.
The plot thickens with Adele. There are now rumours in America that she is having serious issues with her new fella, Rich Paul, who is a huge basketball agent. He looks after LeBron James. And there are US reports saying that he was away travelling the US as part of his job. And as her job was getting busier, preparing for the Las Vegas shows, their relationship was struggling to stay afloat. So she's been holed up at his LA mansion this week. So this could add more fuel to the fire as to why she cancelled those Vegas gigs.
But surely if he's an agent, he knows what sort of monetary implications all of this has and how it damages the brand.
Yeah,
You'd think he'd be advising her a bit better.
But his job is to be, as the basketball matches go round and they're on a circuit, he then has to be in Boston, Vancouver, wherever they all play. I don't know where they play.
So they're doomed, basically.
No, he goes on location all the time, so he's always on the road. Yeah.
So, and I think it's important to remember that they got together this time last year when she was holed up, essentially going to the studio recording her album. But now her career is sort of back on again. There's all this added pressure.
Well, except it's not. She's pulled out of the Brits.
Yes, she's not going to be performing at the Brits anymore, which is such a shame. It was going to be one of the big, highly anticipated performances. She's up for 4 gongs, and there is talk of her trying to get someone to come and pick up those awards for her, whether it would be pal Sam Smith, even Ed Sheeran, but it doesn't look like she's going to...
next week. I mean, why has she left it so late? And
well, I think that she wasn't anticipating these last-minute gig cancellations in LA, but surely it wouldn't look very good if she swanned over to the UK to come to the Brits and support that. Yeah, it is indeed next week, so I'm actually going, so I'll have to bring you all the goss the next day.
We'd love that.
She thinks we're not going.
Well, maybe you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know that was a bad assumption on my part. I can see you on the red carpet.
We're not, as it turns out, but anyway.
If anyone wants to invite us, we'd be very willing to go. OK, you've got a couple of EastEnders stories for us.
So, yes, I interviewed Sid Owen. I don't know if you remember him. He played Ricky Butcher, and he's bravely told me about the very difficult birth of his partner, Victoria, who she went into labour a month early and with a low-lying placenta, which is very dangerous for both mum and baby. And at one point, he thought he was going to lose both. But the good news is he has become a dad at 50 to beautiful baby girl, Sky. He's getting to grips with the newfound stresses of becoming a parent. But what was interesting is it actually triggered memories of when he played Ricky in the 90s with Bianca, and they had a stillborn. So he was thinking, oh God, it's like scrubbed up in the hospital, and it's just bringing back to these scenes of EastEnders when it didn't turn out well. But fortunately, thanks to the NHS doctors, it did.
Do you know what? Childbirth, no matter what anyone says, every birth is like an emergent. It's like a life and death situation. It's so
I have such respect for midwives. Incredible.
And women.
So we stay... women.
Just amazing, giving birth, don't you think?
As they say, my mother says, if it was left to men, it wouldn't happen.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. Daniela, we stay with EastEnders. Daniela Westbrook, she played Sam Mitchell, but not anymore. They've replaced her and she doesn't like it.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. So Sam Mitchell was another one of those big explosive characters on EastEnders. She had a well-publicised cocaine addiction in the late 90s, early noughties, and she was replaced by Kim Metcalfe. But then she actually came back after her recovery in 2009 and 2016 to Peggy's funeral. But EastEnders are now recasting the role again, and we're going back to Kim Metcalfe, and Daniela is not happy. She's tweeted that the EastEnders bosses will be hearing from her lawyers. I don't think, from a contractual point of view, though, they're in any trouble because the contracts are very short for those sort of returning roles. What I do wonder is if Daniela's OnlyFans account could play into it, because I do know that Hollyoaks had an issue when their actress Sarah Jane Dunn had an OnlyFans account. For viewers at home, it can be an explicit picture account. So I wonder if that leads into it.
Interesting. We've got to leave it there, Hannah. Thank you very much indeed. That's it from us this Monday morning. Thanks for starting your day and your week with us.
Yeah, that was Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. After us will be Tom Harwood with The Briefing. But whatever you do, we hope you have a lovely Monday.
Going to head to today, and Storm Corey is now clearing eastwards, taking the storm force winds with it. We've just been reporting on that. Here are the details.
If in the southwest, it'll be blustery and showery this lunchtime, whilst some sunny breaks are likely. There won't be as much sunshine as yesterday, and it will feel colder too.
There's also the risk of a few showers in the southeast. They shouldn't be especially heavy, though the odd sharp one is possible.
It will be blustery and showery across much of Wales. The heaviest showers are going to be towards the northwest of the county.
We move towards the Midlands, and the showers feed southeastwards. They will ease a little, so there will be fewer for the Midlands area. That being said, there will still be a few which could catch you out.
In the northeast, things should stay drier. The very strong winds we saw earlier in the day will be easing with plenty of sunshine on the cards there. Temperatures a touch down on average.
Here's Scotland. Showers will feed across Scotland. Some of those falling as sleet or snow, especially over higher ground. Southeastern parts of the country have the best chance of staying dry.
Showers and blustery winds are expected across Northern Ireland.